Chapter 1595. Marquis Yong'an, since His Majesty has given you the power to mobilize all forces to investigate the case. Marquis Yong, you don't need to be afraid of the slightest thing. Once you find out that the officials of King Shi's faction have been in contact with Du Yi, you can send troops to ambush them around their residences. Tomorrow, when the dragon sect attacks the city, if they make any strange movements, you can take them all down. Once the dragon sect is destroyed, His Majesty will naturally be free to punish those officials. In the Supreme Court, Lu Dui stood up and looked sternly at Li Zixuan. In fact, he said this with a certain degree of selfishness. In his view, if Li Zixuan directly went to see Li Er and made the matter clear, Li Er would definitely be forced to carry out a major investigation. However, even if the officials of Li Jinqing's faction were found to have been in contact with Du Yi, there was no direct evidence to prove that they had agreed to Du Yi's request. With insufficient evidence, and the fact that most of those officials had not done anything to betray the court, Li Er would most likely pardon them again in order to show his image as a benevolent ruler. But among those pardoned officials, there were bound to be many fish that had escaped the net. Although Li Er had pardoned them, they were a ticking time bomb for the great Tang. They did not have time to rebel against the court during the dragon sect's uprising. So if someone were to use Li Jinqing's banner to rebel next time, who knew if those officials would be swayed again? Thus, rather than burying a hidden danger in the future, it was better to settle the matter now. When those officials of King Shi's faction really did comply with Du Yi's request to work for the dragon sect, he could directly come forward and catch them red-handed. This way, Li Er would have no reason to forgive those officials, and the great Tang would have fewer hidden dangers in the future. Moreover, this move could ensure that the political situation of the great Tang imperial court could quickly stabilize. It could be said to be killing many birds with one stone. Li Zixuan was not stupid. After thinking for a while, he could more or less guess at Lu Dui's good intentions. This method was indeed an extremely good one for the great Tang imperial court. But for Li Zixuan, it was not so good, because this meant that he would become the butcher's knife that Li Er waved at the officials of Li Jinqing's faction. He would offend many people because of this. Marquis Yong, and you said it yourself just now, those who are paid by the emperor should share the emperor's burdens. Being indecisive will only lead to chaos. If the matter of King Shi is not completely resolved, there will be endless trouble in the future. Furthermore, more innocent people will die because of this in the future. How could Lu Dui not see the hesitation in Li Zixuan's heart? Therefore, he added, after pondering for a long time, Li Zixuan finally nodded and said, "Okay, then let's do as Minister Lu says. But this Marquis's actions are not for His Divine Majesty's sake, but for the great Tang, so that the common people of the great Tang will no longer die from internal strife. As descendants of the Yellow Emperor, we should unite against the outside world. When the great Tang dominates the world, we will look back and realize how childish and laughable today's internal strife was." Without waiting for Lu Dui's response, Li Zixuan turned around and left. The great Tang dominates the world. I hope I can see this day in my lifetime. In the hall, Lu Dui looked at Li Zixuan's back and sighed. After leaving the Supreme Court, Li Zixuan went straight out of the Imperial Palace and went to Duke Wei's mansion. Although he had Li Er's Imperial Edict and Gold Medallion, which allowed him to mobilize any troop in the capital, he had to inform Li Jing, the Minister of War and a military expert. After all, he was far less familiar with the 12 guards of the capital than Li Jing. When he arrived at the Li mansion, it was fortunate that the Red Buddha lady was not there. Otherwise, he would be scolded again. Because a few days ago, the bearded guest was almost killed by Wu Jie in order to protect Yanwan College. Given the relationship between the Red Buddha lady and the bearded guest, she would definitely scold Li Zixuan when she saw him. Under Li Dijian's lead, Li Zixuan quickly met with Li Jing. Several hours ago, Li Jing was still participating in a meeting at the Suite Du Hall, so he naturally knew about the secret letter that Li Junxian had sent to Li Zixuan. Thus, Li Zixuan only told Li Jing about Lu Dui's conjecture and his intention to mobilize troops. After hearing the general situation, Li Jing couldn't help but frown. He looked at Li Zishuan with a serious expression and said, "Little Xian, this matter involves King Shi and is no small matter. Have you really thought it through?" These words didn't make any sense, but Li Jing was very sure that Li Zishuan could understand them. "I've thought it through. There are some things that have to be done, or else the hidden dangers will continue to exist, and the future of the Great Tang will be uncertain. When the hidden dangers erupt again, many people will die because of it." Li Zishuan also looked at Li Jing with a serious expression. "Good." Li Jing looked at Li Zishuan with a complicated expression, both praise and worry. This was because he wasn't sure how Li Zishuan's decision would affect Li Zishuan in the future. After a few moments of silence, he said, "This old man will write you in order to mobilize troops. In truth, in terms of concealment and concealment, the soldiers of the right guard are the best. Right now, Jija isn't in Chang, and so take this old man's order and go to the right guard camp to mobilize troops. No one will dare to make things difficult for you." Cheng Yaojin was the great general of the right guard. After saying this, he picked up the brush on the table and prepared to write an order. Li Zishuan very perceptively stepped forward to help Li Jing grind the ink. As he did so, he said gratefully, "Many thanks, Uncle Li." Li Jing nodded slightly and didn't say anything. Soon, an order for the transfer of troops was written. Li Jing took out his personal seal and stamped it heavily on the order, then passed it to Li Zishuan and said, "This is the order for the transfer of troops. Little Xian, take it well." "Okay." Li Zishuan quickly took it with both hands. He had planned to leave, but Li Jing said, "Little Xian, let this old man recall for a moment, and then I'll give you a list of the officials who were close to King Shi. Later, you can screen them according to the list." Hearing this, Li Zishuan's face immediately revealed a trace of surprise. He quickly cupped his hands and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Uncle Li." In fact, he had been worried about how to get a list of the King Shi's faction. Although he came from a modern era and had read some history books and had an excellent memory, he didn't have the ability to list all the officials who were close to Li Jiansheng. However, Li Jing was different. Li Jing had experienced the open and secret struggle between the king of Qin and Crown Prince Li Jiansheng. Regarding who was around Li Jiansheng, Li Jing was definitely one of the people who had the most right to speak. "It's fine." Li Jing shook his head, then closed his eyes and began to meditate. Li Zishuan didn't disturb him, but stood quietly at the side. When he was bored, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a book on Li Jing's desk. There were 3 big words on the cover: Talisman Machine. Li Zishuan couldn't help but be moved. He thought to himself that it turned out that Li Jing had already begun to organize his military and war experience into the art of war at this time. It was a pity that the original work couldn't be passed down. Future generations could only see the big picture from the general classic and the art of war in the Taiping Imperial Library. It was really a pity. When Li Jing's Art of War is finished, I must borrow a copy of it and store it in the library of Yinhuang College for future students to study. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a pity if such a good art of war was lost? Li Zishuan secretly made up his mind. According to historical records, Li Jing's Art of War was written in 7 books: Talisman Machine, Secret Art of War, General Essentials of War, Notes of Duke Wei, Mirror of 6 Armies, New Book of War, and Archery. However, these books weren't complete as early as the middle and late Tang Dynasty. In the 21st century, most of them were lost. The Qing Dynasty scholar Wang Zongqi compiled the Li Weigong Art of War based on Diu's general classic, Du Mu's commentary on Sun Tzu and the Song Dynasties, Taiping Imperial Library, and General Essentials of War. It became the only complete reference for modern scholars to study Li Jing's Art of War. While Li Zishuan was deep in thought, Li Jing had already started writing. The names of Li Jiansheng's faction were written on the paper one by one. Li Zishuan's eyesight was extremely good. When he looked over, he was shocked to see the words written on it: Wei Zheng, Wang Ge, Wei Ting, Shui Wanche. Only among these names, there was no lack of big shots in the imperial court. For example, Wei Zheng and Wang Gui were not only important by Li Jiansheng's side, They were also important existences in the current imperial court. At this moment, Li Zixuan suddenly felt a little scared in his heart. Every time Li Jing wrote a name, Li Zixuan's heart would beat fiercely. After an unknown period of time, Li Jing finally put away the brush. When the ink on the paper was almost dry, he picked it up with a solemn expression and handed it to Li Zixuan. Little Xian, these are almost all the officials in King Shi's faction who still hold positions in the imperial court. However, you need to weigh the pros and cons. Although some of them served King Shi back then, they have been conscientious and loyal ever since His Majesty ascended the throne. They are only loyal to the monarch and do not care who is the monarch. As long as the monarch treats the people well, they will serve him loyally. I have selected a few such officials for you. I believe that they will not betray His Majesty because of the bewitchment of the dragon sect. Li Zixuan knew that Li Jing was helping him to clear the mind and let him not offend people as much as possible under the premise of doing things well. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He nodded and said, "Thank you very much, Uncle Li. I will know what to do." Li Jing pondered for a moment and said, "Little Xian later used the telegraph to ask Xu Bao and Ji Jia where the army is going. See if they can rush back to Chang and before tomorrow. If they can, we will definitely win the battle to defend the city tomorrow easily." Uncle Qin and Uncle Cheng. Hearing this, Li Zixuan's eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "That's right. How could little nephew forget about this?" Uncle Qin and the rest led 10,000 elite light cavalry. After I left yesterday, they have already returned to the imperial court. They should not be far from Chang'an now, right? If they can arrive before tomorrow and set up an ambush in advance, we can attack from both inside and outside and defeat the Dragon Sect's army in one fell swoop. Li Jing smiled and said, "Exactly. If not for worrying about the Dragon Sect's people being alert, I would have advised His Majesty to send an army out of the city in advance to set up an ambush." Fortunately, Xu Bao and the rest still led 10,000 elites outside the city and can catch the Dragon Sect by surprise. Li Zixuan nodded and said, "Good. I will send a telegram to Uncle Qin and the rest. Then I will go to the Right Guard's camp to mobilize the troops." Chapter 1596. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and came to the palace and borrowed the telegraph machine. In the afternoon, Zhao Song came to Ganlu Palace and bowed to Lier. The telegraph machine was specially kept by Zhao Song in the palace. It was not used often and was placed in a small room in Taiji Palace. It was basically a telegraph machine used by the royal family and was usually not open to the public. However, Li Zixuan was an exception because he was the one who invented the telegraph machine. Therefore, when Zhao Song heard that Li Zixuan wanted to borrow the telegraph machine, he did not refuse after some consideration. Lier frowned and asked, "Telegraph machine? Why does he want to borrow the telegraph machine? Who is he sending a telegram to?" Zhao Song replied, "Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and is sending a telegram to General Qin and General Cheng, asking where the army is now and if they can reach Chang and city before tomorrow." Lier was also a veteran in battle. Hearing this, his eyes lit up and he could not help but say, "This kid wants to borrow Xu Bao's army to attack the Dragon Sect from both inside and outside tomorrow? Good. I did not misjudge him. This brat's talent in military formations was no less than his talent in engineering. He is a promising talent." His words revealed his undisguised admiration for Li Zixuan. Zhao Song could not help but secretly admire Li Zixuan's imperial favor. There was no one else like him. It is all thanks to your Majesty's discerning eyes. Otherwise, a young talent like the Marquis of Yong and might be buried in the marketplace. Zhao Song clasped his hands together and smiled, giving him a flattering compliment. Lier shook his head. After a moment of silence, he asked, "How did Xu Bao reply?" "Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and said that General Qin and the rest have already marched to the same continent. If they march day and night, they will reach Chang and city at midnight tonight." Zhao Song did not know anything about telegraphy, so he could only repeat what Li Zixuan had said to Lier. Lier could not help but nod and say, Good. Did Li Zishuan let Shu Bao and the others set up an ambush outside Chang and city, waiting for the dragon sect to attack Chang and city tomorrow with the help of the city's defenders? Zhao Song shook his head and said no. The Marquis of Yong, and left after asking about the location of the army. Lier was stunned and then understood. He could not help but laugh and scolded. Good. Now, you know how to follow the rules? Lier understood that Li Zishuan's actions were to avoid overstepping his authority and being suspected. Today, in order to investigate the Dragon Sect's conspiracy, he had indeed given Li Zishuan the authority to mobilize the army. However, that was only the army in Chang and city and did not include the army led by Qin Xiong that had just retreated from the front lines. If Li Zishuan had rashly ordered Qin Xiong's army to set up an ambush, even if Li Er did not punish Li Zishuan, he would still feel uncomfortable and estranged. Therefore, Li Zishuan only asked about the location of Qin Xiong's army and left. He believed that once Old Li knew of the situation, he would definitely send an order to Qin Xiong to set up an ambush outside Chang and city. There was no need for him to worry. This was where Li Zishuan was smart. He knew when to stop and when to retreat. After pausing for a moment, Li Er indeed opened his mouth and ordered. Zhao Song immediately passed down the order. Have a Marquis of Yong and send a telegram to Shu Bao. Order the army to march day and night and set up camp 20 miles outside Chang and city. Be careful and hide. When you receive my order tomorrow, immediately send troops to eliminate the rebels outside Chang and city. With the combined efforts of all the teachers and students of Yanhuang College, the communication technology of the telegram was becoming more and more mature. The palace was indeed equipped with a telegram, but they lacked the professionals to use it. Lier had specially selected a few clever and loyal eunuchs with clean backgrounds and sent them to Yanhuang College to learn how to use the telegram. However, those eunuchs had yet to return from their studies. Therefore, in order to know the news from Longmen Pass, he had specially summoned Li Tai back from Yanhuang College to help send the telegram and translate the messages. Now, that Li Tai was taking his final exams at Yanhuang College, he would definitely not be able to pass. Therefore, Lier had no choice but to assign the task to Li Zishuan again. Yes, Your Majesty. Zhao Song bowed and answered, then continued, the Marquis of Yong, and should be at the right guard yamen now. Your Majesty, I will bring the telegram to him. Wait. Li Er's expression changed. He stopped Zhao Song and asked, you said that Li Zishuan is at the right guard yamen. What's he doing there? Zhao Song replied carefully, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, I heard the Marquis of Yong and say that he's going to the right guard yamen to mobilize troops to investigate the possible remnants of the Dragon Sect in Chang and City. The possible remnants of the Dragon Sect in Chang and City? When Lier heard this, he seemed to have understood something. His eyes flashed, and he said faintly, Tell Li Zishuan to go ahead and investigate. No matter who is involved, deal with it strictly according to the law. Tell him not to have any fear, because I am his backer. His words were resolute and decisive, but one could also hear Li Er's determination to cut off his wrist like a warrior. Zhao Song's heart skipped a beat. He bowed and said, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Haha, Ringue, I haven't seen you for a few months, and you've been promoted. In the right guard yamen in the outer imperial city, Li Zishuan took out the imperial edict and Li Jing's order to mobilize troops. After he expressed his intention to mobilize troops, the general who had received him earlier immediately turned and left. Not long after, an old acquaintance walked in. It was Lu Ringue, who had made outstanding contributions in quelling the rebellion in Guan City and was later promoted to the right commander of the right guard by Lier. Thus, Li Zishuan stood up and couldn't help but laugh heartily. Lu Ringue quickly waved his hands and said, Marquis, please don't make fun of me. Now that General Cheng is not in the capital, I'm only temporarily taking over the military affairs for General Cheng. The reason why Lu Ringue was able to enter the right guard was not only because of his contributions, but also because Cheng Yaojin had secretly added fuel to the fire. During the battle in Guan City, Cheng Yaojin had admired Lu Rengui's ability, so old Cheng had asked Li Er to transfer Lu Rengui under his command. Of course, Lu Rengui did not disappoint old Cheng. After joining the Right Guards, Lu Rengui was not only extremely hardworking in training, but also very few people could compare to him in terms of military strategy and ability to get along with others. Gradually, Cheng Yaojin began to give Lu Rengui more tasks. "Ha! Rengui, you're too humble. I'm a little regretful now that I didn't personally go to the battlefield to quell the rebellion in Guan City. As a result, I didn't get to see the battle of wits and courage between Rengui and the Chui and Zheng families." Li Zixuan laughed and said, "Marquis, you flatter me." Lu Rengui was a little embarrassed by Li Zixuan's praise, but when he thought of Li Zixuan's intention, he quickly said seriously, "I heard that Marquis came to the Right Guard to mobilize troops. May I ask how many troops Marquis wants to mobilize? Where will these troops be used?" It wasn't that he suspected Li Zixuan of any bad intentions, but since he was now helping Cheng Yaoji manage the affairs of the Right Guard, he still had to ask clearly about something as important as mobilizing troops. This Marquis plans to mobilize 5,000 elite troops from the Right Guard to investigate the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect in Chang and City. These people must train hard and be good at hiding. Li Zixuan replied indifferently. Remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect? Lu Rengui frowned. Being in the army, he naturally didn't know that the mastermind behind the kidnapping of Li Chengqian and Changle was very likely related to the Heavenly Dragon sect. But although he didn't know, he didn't ask too much. Instead, he stood up and said, "Good. This general will go and organize a force of 5,000 elite soldiers and then follow the Marquis of Yong and to investigate the remnants of the Heavenly Dragon sect." Not long after, 5,000 soldiers dressed in ordinary clothes rushed out of the Right Guard camp. Li Zixuan had specifically requested for them to be dressed in ordinary clothes. Under Li Zixuan's arrangements, these 5,000 soldiers would disguise themselves as ordinary citizens and infiltrate the residences of certain officials. They would secretly inquire about the movements of these officials, and Li Zixuan would arrange for people to monitor certain officials based on their feedback. The 5,000 soldiers Lu Rengui had selected were mostly scouts. Some of them had even gone deep into the Turks and worked as spies on the steppe, so they were quite experienced in hiding. An invisible net began to slowly unfold in Chang and City. Those officials who couldn't bear the loneliness and came out to cause trouble would all become fish in the net. Venerable One, the patrols in Chang and City haven't relaxed at all. The city gates are still closed. It seems that the imperial court won't let this go easily. In Gi Lane, south of Chang and City, a thin man bowed and said in a house with two entrances. The person standing opposite him was Du Yi. At this time, Du Yi had already taken off his wide bamboo hat, revealing his bald but shiny forehead. Hearing this, he frowned and said coldly, "Humph, Li Shimin's son and daughter almost fell into our hands. Of course, he won't let this go. Wait patiently. When the Imperial Ancestral Temple is destroyed by thunder and fire tomorrow, this old monk will lead you out and call on all the citizens in Chang and City to resist the tyranny of Li Tang. At that time, the army led by Long Tu will be outside Chang and City. We will lead the citizens in the city and directly attack the city gates. With Long Tu's cooperation, Chang and City will definitely be broken by us." Ha ha! At the end, Du Yi couldn't help but laugh proudly because of his beautiful vision. The thin man standing beside him also said excitedly, "Venerable One is wise." It turns out that the Venerable One has already thought of a plan to cooperate with the outside. That's why you deliberately lost control when you kidnapped the Crown Prince. The Venerable One is farsighted. I admire you. Hearing this, Shijaidu couldn't help blushing. He asked himself honestly, when he kidnapped Li Chengqian and Changle, he really didn't fail on purpose. He wanted to capture Li Er's children more than anyone else, but his strength didn't allow him to do so. In the face of Li Zixuan and Xian Qing's arrival, he had no chance of winning at all. He could only flee. He didn't expect his subordinate to be so smart. He even thought of the reason for his failure. It saved him the trouble of making up a reason. What's the movement of the Imperial Guards and the Supreme Court? In the face of his subordinate's praise, he remained calm and reserved. He glanced at the lean man indifferently and then asked, "Venerable One, the Imperial Guards and the officials of the Supreme Court are searching for our dragon sex followers. Many of our followers have been captured to the Supreme Court. But don't worry, Venerable One. This place is very safe. Even if the Imperial Court's people dig 3 feet into the ground, they won't be able to find us. Moreover, the owner of this house has a very good relationship with the owner of Guei Lane. Even if they find this place, they won't be too serious." The thin man bowed slightly and cupped his fist. He couldn't help but nod and said, "That's good. In addition, you inform the rest of the people in the sect to lie low. Don't make any trouble. When the limelight is over, we'll join in the righteous action." "Yes, Venerable One," the thin man responded and then pulled the rope beside him. Soon, someone above turned the wooden wheel on the well and pulled him up from the bottom of the well. It turned out that he was hiding under the dry well. No wonder the thin man said that this place was very safe and they weren't afraid of the Imperial Court's search. Chapter 1597. Yes, if I remember correctly, Boss Zhang is usually stingy. Did the sun rise from the west today? Otherwise, why would he let the servants buy so many chickens, ducks, and fish? Hiss, there's even a pot of immortal drunken wine here. In the south of Chang and City, on the street of Gi Lane, Meng Yuliang looked in the direction of Mother Meng's finger and saw a plump man in luxurious clothes at the door of a house. He was directing 2 servants to carry chickens, ducks, fish, and even a pot of wine. The sign on the pot was immortal drunken wine. Meng Yuliang couldn't help but be surprised. Boss Zhang's name was Zhang Dikang. His family opened a medium-sized grain store and was considered to have a small family fortune. However, he was stingy. Not only was he stingy to others, but he was also stingy to himself. Other than dressing decently, he was stingy in all other aspects, including food. Could it be that Boss Zhang has an important guest in his house? Mother Meng thought for a moment and then asked suspiciously. Hearing this, Meng Yuliang shook his head and said, That's impossible. Don't you know Boss Zhang's character? Even if an important guest came, he would not be willing to buy a pot of immortal drunken wine." In the end, Meng Yuliang seemed to think of something and added, "Besides, the 4 city gates of Chang and City are closed today. How could there be a guest in Boss Zhang's house? Unless the guest came early in the morning. But why would someone visit relatives early in the morning? Also, did you hear that Boss Zhang spent a lot of money to join that Dragon God sect? He almost sold his grain store. I didn't expect him to be willing to buy so many things today. Yes, today's Boss Zhang was too strange. Master, should we go over and ask?" Mother Meng echoed and then asked tentatively. With Meng Yuliang's official position, his status in the family skyrocketed. Mother Meng would specifically ask Meng Yuliang about many things. Meng Yuliang heard this and said, "What's there to ask? These are other people's family matters. Let's not meddle in other people's business and go back quickly. Yaya is alone at home. Can you rest assured?" After saying that, Meng Yuliang turned and walked towards the alley on the left. Meng Yuliang's mother reacted and quickly followed. A stingy miser suddenly bought so much good wine and meat. Today, the city gate of Chang is closed, and fugitives are being caught everywhere in the city. This means that Mr. Zhang's house can't have a sudden guest, and he used to be a member of the Dragon Sect. Then he looks like I can make a small fortune again. Once Meng Yuliang and his wife left, a girl in shabby clothes appeared where they had been standing. If Li Zixuan were here, he would have definitely recognized her, because this was the girl who had given him Li Juanxian's secret letter. The young girl stood under the willow tree at the entrance of the alley, quietly waiting for the door of the house to return to normal. Then, she pretended to be an ordinary passerby and walked in that direction. "Tell the kitchen to prepare all these ingredients tonight." In the Zhang mansion, Zhang Dikang's face was flushed as he ordered several servants in the courtyard. Looking at his expression, there wasn't any sorrow from losing money. Instead, it was as if he was about to experience something joyous. To the stingy Mr. Zhang in the eyes of outsiders, this was yes. Master. The servants hurriedly left to carry out the order. Seeing that everyone had left, Zhang Dikang rubbed his hands excitedly. He went out first and poked his head out. Seeing that there were no soldiers on the street, he personally closed the courtyard door. After doing all this, he walked towards the backyard with his hands behind his back with an indifferent expression. Venerable one, this disciple has prepared the best wine and food according to your request. In a little while, I will be able to hold a welcoming feast for Venerable one. Venerable one, please wait a moment with the emissaries of the sect. Zhang Dikang went to the dry well in the rear courtyard. It was already evening, and candles were already lit in the well. Zhang Dikang respectfully bowed to Du. You've done very well. Du Yi nodded. When this one returns to the sect tomorrow, I will promote you to an inner sect disciple. I will bestow upon you an inexhaustible supply of Jade Lake holy water, so that you will never be sick and will live forever. Many thanks, Venerable One. Many thanks, Venerable One. This subordinate will be loyal to the dragon sect. I will go through water and tread on fire for Venerable One. Hearing this, Zhang Dikang trembled with excitement. He knelt down directly and kowtowed to Du Yi. In order to become an inner sect disciple of the dragon sect, he did not hesitate to spend all his wealth, but Du Yi did not even look at him. Who would have thought that this morning luck would fall from the sky? Zhang Dikang finally saw the high and mighty Buddha in his heart, and the Buddha also wanted to stay in his house temporarily. Zhang Dikang was extremely excited. How could he not agree? However, Du Yi's request was very strange. He did not want to stay in the guest room prepared in the Zhang mansion. Instead, he wanted to stay under the dry well in the rear courtyard of the Zhang mansion, saying that it was convenient to study Buddhism. Zhang Dikang persuaded him many times, but it was useless. In the end, he could only give up. In addition, as a monk, Du Yi actually asked Zhang Dikang to prepare some good wine and meat. How could a monk drink wine and eat meat? After Zhang Dikang received this order, he secretly muttered in his heart. However, although there were many questions in his heart, Zhang Dikang fulfilled all of Du Yi's strange requests to the letter. He hoped to obtain Du Yi's favor and directly promote him to an inner court disciple. Now that his wish had come true, how could Zhang Dikang not be excited? Although Zhang Dikang has all four limbs, his body has always had some problems, kidney failure. So after hearing others say that the Yaoqi holy water can cure all diseases, Zhang Dikang went crazy. He wanted to use all means to join the dragon sect, get the Yaoqi holy water, and cure the unspeakable illness that has troubled him for a long time. Now that his dream finally came true, Zhang Dikang felt that all his efforts were worth it. In a while, send the wine and food to the bottom of the well. This venerable one will not go up. This venerable one will continue to study Buddhism at the bottom of this well tonight. Remember, don't tell anyone that this venerable one is here. Otherwise, everything that this venerable one gave you will be taken back with interest. Du Yi held the Buddha's salute and told Zhang Dikang with a serious face. Disciple understands. Disciple understands. I will arrange it now. Zhang Dikang quickly nodded and bowed. And are you wondering why you did not abstain from wine and meat as a monk? Du Si stared at Zhang Dikang, and he suddenly asked, No. Disciple does not dare. Venerable one must have his reasons for doing so. Disciple does not dare to ask more. Zhang Dikang quickly waved his hand. Although he did have this idea, he could not say it directly. You must know that wine and meat pass through the intestines, but Buddha's heart remains. Although this venerable one drinks wine and eats meat, I have never forgotten Buddha in my heart. This is not breaking the precepts. Do you understand? Du Yi's face darkened as he spoke in a serious tone. When Zhang Dikang heard this, he immediately prostrated himself in admiration and said, "Venerable one's dharma is profound. Disciple admires. Disciple admires. Hee. Go quickly. And this boss Zhang, it's not dark yet, and he closed the courtyard door. Obviously, he has a guilty conscience. No, I have to find a way to go in and take a look. But how do I get in? Yes. Got it. I will climb over the wall from the backyard." Outside the front door of the Zhang mansion, the girl muttered to herself for a while and then walked quietly toward the back of the Zhang mansion. Fortunately, Chang and city was now under martial law. Most of the people had returned to their homes, and there were very few people wandering outside. Otherwise, her sneaky behavior might be discovered by passers-by on the road. She tiptoed to the wall of the backyard. The girl wanted to climb over the wall, but she couldn't do so no matter how many times she tried. This was because the wall of the Zhang family's residence was higher than the walls of other residences. After several attempts to no avail, the girl gave up the idea of climbing over the courtyard wall because she was also afraid that a passerby would suddenly appear on the street or that her climbing over the courtyard wall would alarm the people inside. Panting as she leaned against the courtyard wall, the young girl pondered whether or not she should give up. If there were really people hiding in this residence, as she had speculated, then if she was discovered, she wouldn't be able to escape even if she wanted to. The only path left for her was death. It would be a lie if she said that she was not afraid. But the girl was not willing to leave just like that. She came to Chang'an City today to deliver a letter to Li Zixuan on behalf of Li Junxian, but she did not expect that after delivering the letter, the gates of Chang'an City would be closed, and she could not leave. Tonight, she could only stay in the inns of Chang'an City. What was worse was that she was not the only one forced to stay in the inns of Chang'an City tonight. She could even imagine the scene of the inns in the city being full. At this time, she would have to pay a higher price than usual to get a room. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. Speaking of which, she did not sell the Lingji mushroom she picked in the morning for much money. Tonight, she would have to spend a large sum of money to stay in the inn. In this way, she would only earn a few hundred copper coins after painstakingly making this trip. It was a huge loss. If I can confirm that there is a venerable of the dragon sect in this house, and then tell this news to that young and handsome marquis, he will definitely be willing to reward me. Then I will be rich. After weighing the pros and cons in her mind, the girl decided to take the risk. But how do I see the situation inside the house? Faced with the predicament in front of her, the young girl was once again in a dilemma. Her gaze swept around the streets of the Zhang estate's backyard. Suddenly, the young girl's eyes lit up as she fixed her gaze on the two old ginkgo trees, one zhang away from the Zhang estate's back door. "Hey, I've got it." The girl first looked around, and after confirming that there was no one around, she excitedly walked to the nearest ginkgo tree. She wanted to climb the tree, but this ginkgo tree was very old, and even two people would not be able to wrap their arms around it. It would be rather difficult for an ordinary person to climb it. Who would have thought that the girl would take off her shoes without saying a word, revealing her white underwear? Then, like a nimble little monkey, she climbed up the ginkgo tree in the blink of an eye. Judging from her skillful movements, it was obvious that this wasn't her first time climbing a tree. The girl adjusted her posture and sat down on a branch of the ginkgo tree, allowing her to see everything in the Zhang residence. Chapter 1598. Inside the dry well in the backyard of the Zhang family. Du, Yi, and the others were drinking big bowls of wine, eating big chunks of meat, and bragging loudly. In order to please Du, Yi, Zhang Dikang naturally did his best to cater to them. Therefore, this dilapidated dry well was as lively as a big restaurant. Du, Yi came from the tantric sect of India, so it was impossible for him to not have any rules and regulations. However, ever since he came to the Tang Empire, he was immediately blinded by the colorful world of the Central Plains, especially after he accidentally tasted the immortal drunken wine of the Drunken Immortal restaurant. The rules and regulations that he had adhered to for decades instantly collapsed. Moreover, once the rules were broken, they could no longer be adhered to. Therefore, he had become a monk who drank and ate. Of course, he would not easily show this aspect of himself to the world. After all, he still had to maintain the image of an enlightened monk in front of the world. Who's outside? Du Yi and the others had just finished drinking when they heard someone shouting from above the dry well. Huh, not good. There are lackeys of the imperial court spying around the mansion. We can't let him leave alive. Du Yi was the first to react. He quickly put down his chopsticks, then got up and went to the direction of the well. He leaped into the air and directly rushed out of the dry well that was more than 5 feet deep. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, the few core disciples of the dragon sect who followed Du Yi also relied on Qin Gong to step on the wall of the well and rushed out of the well. Which direction? After Du Yi stood still on the ground, he looked at the manservant and asked in a deep voice. The manservant obviously did not expect that someone could directly fly out of the dry well that was more than 5 feet deep without the help of ropes and well wheels. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He quickly pointed to the northwest outside the back door and said, "Reporting to the Venerable One, just now I heard some movement outside the back door. Then I heard someone shouting, followed by a series of footsteps. I think that person ran from the northwest direction." Who? As soon as the manservant finished speaking, he found that Du Yi, who was originally standing in front of him, had disappeared without a trace. The other 4 Dragon Sect core disciples who had just come up from the well also hurriedly followed and flew out of the Zhang family's backyard. What an unlucky year. Why am I so unlucky today? I've climbed so many trees in the mountains before and never fell. Why did something happen today? It's over. It's over. If the person hiding in the Zhang family catches him, he'll be finished. In the alleyway of Gue Yi Lane, the young girl dragged her sprained left leg and ran with all her might while limping. As she ran, she muttered softly. At this moment, the girl really had the urge to cry. "Don't chase after me. None of you can see me." The girl prayed silently in her heart. But many times, praying was praying, and the reality was always contrary to one's wishes. So it's a little girl? Just as the young girl ran out of the street where the Zhang mansion was located, she suddenly heard a whistling sound and a cold snort. With that said, a bald monk in a black robe stood in front of the young girl, completely blocking her path. Aren't you Venerable Du Yi of the Heavenly Dragon Sect? Why are you stopping me?" Because Du Yi came out in a hurry this time, he didn't wear a wide bamboo hat on his head. After the young girl saw the big monk's true appearance, a trace of panic flashed through her eyes. Then, she pointed at Du Yi and questioned him loudly, trying to put up a strong front. The reason why she shouted so loudly was that she wanted to attract the attention of the people nearby. In this way, she might have a chance to live today. "Oh, you know me?" Although Du Yi had seen through the young girl's thoughts, he did not expose her. A playful smile appeared on his face. After pausing for a moment, he took 2 steps forward and said with a serious face, "Little girl, how do you know this Venerable One? Tell me, who sent you here?" Although there was no threat in his words, his tone was much stricter than before, and even had a trace of murderous intent. The young girl was very frightened, but she didn't show it on her face because of Du Yi's words. She forced herself to be calm and said, "What do you mean by who sent me here? I'm just passing by here. Why are you chasing me? Besides, 10 days ago, you were in Chang and city showing your Buddha skills to the people. I was there at that time. Is it strange that I know you?" Hearing this, Du Yi's eyes flashed. He believed the second half of the young girl's words, but he didn't believe a single word of the first half of the sentence. "Oh, passing by? Just passing by?" Du Yi's aura changed and said coldly, "Heavenly Dragon Sect is now listed as a disobedient sect by the Imperial Court. Now that you know where I'm hiding, are you planning to report this information to the Imperial Court to receive a reward?" "Of course not. I don't know anyone from the Imperial Court. Even if I know you're hiding here, who can I report this information to?" Although the young girl wanted to say yes, but in order to survive, she could only desperately deny it. Du Yi snorted and sneered. "Humph. You think I'll believe your nonsense? If you know what's good for you, you'll come with me today." After the commotion dies down, I'll let you go." Hearing this, the young girl hurriedly took 2 steps back and said, "Why are you being so unreasonable?" I said, "I'm just passing by. If you don't believe me, then forget it. But you're now a wanted criminal of the Imperial Court. If you dare to act rashly, I'll shout for help. If the patrolling Wu-Ho hears the commotion, you won't be able to leave. Then why don't you try shouting? See if anyone will come to help you." He sneered, and then he disappeared from where he stood. In the next moment, he was in front of the young girl. It happened so fast that the young girl had no time to react. Yi's large hand grabbed the young girl's shoulder. The young girl finally couldn't hold back and screamed in horror. Then, she desperately retreated backwards, wanting to avoid Yi's big hand. However, she didn't know any martial arts, so how could she escape from a grandmaster's full-strength grasp? Feeling that the hand was getting closer and closer to her shoulder, the young girl's heart was filled with despair and regret. She regretted that she was too greedy and had to get involved in this muddy water for the Imperial Court's reward. She also regretted that she wasn't careful when she went down the tree. Otherwise, she would have already left and passed the news to Lisa Schwan. How do you know that no one will help her? At the critical moment when Yi's large hand was less than 2 inches away from the young girl's shoulder, another voice suddenly sounded from street. This voice made Yi's expression change instantly, but the young girl's face was full of joy after surviving a disaster. Chapter 1599. Mother, there seems to be a fight on the street. The Mao wants to take a look. Sure. What are you looking at? Don't make a sound. Be careful. The bad guys might catch you and dig out your eyes. Then the Mao won't take a look. The battle between the grandmasters on the streets of Gue Lane was extremely loud. Most of the commoners in the nearby residences had heard the commotion. However, almost all of them had gathered near the cracks of their doors or had put up ladders to stick their heads out of the courtyard walls to secretly watch the battle between Lisa Schwan and Yi on the streets. Encountering such a huge battle, the people only dared to secretly watch, and no one dared to come out. Of course, there were also many people who recognized Lisa Schwan and Yi. After all, these two were considered famous people in Chang'an City. Father, isn't that Marquis Yong and Venerable Yi from Dragon Sect? Why are they fighting? Who should we help? Nonsense. Of course we should help Marquis Yong. The Imperial Court has already announced that Dragon Sect is a disobedient sect, and the immortal techniques that Venerable Yi displayed earlier were all lies. Only someone like Marquis Yong and would wholeheartedly think of the people. That's right. Then I'll go help Marquis Yong. Bastard, you stop right there. Just based on your skills, how can you be a match for Yi? If you go, you'll only cause trouble for Marquis. Father, then what do you think we should do? What else can we do? Quickly go out from the back door and find the patrolling Marquis outside to help. Yes. Father, you're still the smart one. Other than those who had been completely brainwashed by Dragon Sect, most of the people who recognized Lisa Schwan and Yi were on Lisa Schwan's side. They wanted to come out and help, but they were afraid of causing trouble for Lisa Schwan. However, there were some people who were more active and had already quietly gone out from their houses to get help. At this moment, seeing that there were 4 more reinforcements in front of Yi, Lisa Schwan's gaze turned cold and murderous. You're courting death. The reason why Yi was able to escape safely from Xianqing's pursuit was because the Dragon Sect's disciples used their lives to cover for him and stall for time. In addition, Xianqing rarely left Mount Longhu and rarely killed people. He was not used to killing people in the beginning, so Yi was able to escape safely. This time, Lisa Schwan finally found Yi. Therefore, he must capture Yi no matter what. As for the 4 people in front of him, he would not show any mercy. He must kill these 4 people in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, if Yi escaped this time, it would be very difficult to catch him in the future. Besides this, Yi was also the key to breaking the stalemate in Chang'an. As a high-ranking member of the Heavenly Dragon Sect, Yi not only knew more than Li Junxian, He also had an incomparable reputation in the Heavenly Dragon sect. Many people had joined the Heavenly Dragon sect for the sake of Du Yi's reputation as the reincarnation of the Buddha. Therefore, Li Zixuan only needed to capture Du Yi and drag him out when the Heavenly Dragon army besieged the city tomorrow. This would be a severe blow to the morale of the Heavenly Dragon army. At that time, many people might realize their mistake and turn their backs on the Heavenly Dragon sect. This way, many people would die in this war. Therefore, whether it was for public or private reasons, Li Zixuan had to capture Du Yi today. No one could stop him. Pung pung pung. Just as Li Zixuan pointed his sword at the four core disciples in front of Du Yi, the sound of galloping horses came from the direction of Yi Square. Soon after, Lu Ringue rushed over with a group of soldiers. Marquis, this general has come to help you. You only need to deal with Du East. Leave this place to us. Lu Ringue and his horse were as swift as the wind. He shouted at Li Zixuan while leaning on the horse's back. Ha! Ringue, you came at the right time. Li Zixuan was overjoyed. He laughed and went around the four core disciples of the Heavenly Dragon sect in front of him. He rushed directly towards Du Yi. The four people were unwilling to give up and wanted to chase after Li Zixuan. However, Lu Ringue had already arrived. Hey, where are you going? Your opponent is me. Lu Ringue was on the horse. He waved the horsetail in his hand and directly hit the heads of the four Heavenly Dragon sect disciples. On the other side, Li Zixuan was fighting with Du Yi again. He became fiercer and fiercer. 9 Taishian swords were thrown at Du Yi's face one after another. He did not even use the Taiji swordsmanship that he was very good at because it was really unnecessary. Facing a small fry like Du Yi, who had just entered the Grandmaster realm, he did not need to defend at all. He just needed to attack with all his strength. Therefore, he did not use the Taiji swordsmanship that was slightly inclined towards defense. In fact, it was true. Facing Li Zixuan's continuous, storm-like attacks, Du Yi could not even parry. How could he think of a counterattack? At the same time, the remaining real qi in Du Yi's body was getting less and less. Du Yi knew very well that if this continued, he would not be able to escape today. Since his strength was not as good as his opponent, he could only use some methods other than strength. Chapter 1600. Many thanks to Marquis for showing mercy. On Guy Lane, Du Yi, who had just escaped death, bowed to Li Zixuan. At that moment just now, he really smelled the scent of death. He was very sure that if he didn't surrender and admit defeat, Li Zixuan's sword move would absolutely pour down on him without holding back. And with his true qi exhausted, facing this incomparably swift and fierce sword move, he would absolutely die without a doubt. Until now, Du Yi's heart was still in a state of shock. It was too dangerous, too dangerous. In that instant just now, he had really walked one round around the gates of hell. Li Zixuan pursed his lips and did not speak, because at this time, Lu Ringue's side had also finished the battle. They were escorting the four core disciples of Heavenly Dragon sect over here. Venerable One, what do you mean by this? Do you want to betray the sect? When everyone arrived in front of Li Zixuan, before Lu Ringue could speak, the Heavenly Dragon sect disciple he was escorting angrily spoke to Du Yi. The rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect people were also shocked and angry. Heavenly Dragon sect was their big family, and Du Yi was their faith. Now that their faith had betrayed their big family, how could they not be angry? While they were angry, their hearts were also crumbling. Du Yi ignored the angry gazes of these four people. He straightened his body and restored his previous dignified appearance, saying lightly, "A wise man submits to circumstances." Dragon Head, for his own selfish interests, ordered this venerable one to bewitch the people into joining the sect, committing treason and heresy, harming the common people. This is truly a heinous crime. Now that Heavenly Dragon sect's fate has come to an end, why don't you follow this venerable one and abandon the darkness for the light? After saying that, he secretly glanced at Li Zixuan's face from the corner of his eye. In the end, He wanted to rely on practical actions to curry favor with Li Zixuan and strive for Li Zixuan's forgiveness. After all, Li Zixuan only spared his life temporarily, but never said that he would let him go completely. To Do ease disappointment, Li Zixuan still had a straight face. He couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. At this moment, Lu Ringue finally had a chance to speak. He cupped his hands towards Li Zixuan and said, "Marquis, this general has already broken their limbs. Moreover, this general has checked that there is no poison in their mouths. There is no need to worry about them committing suicide." Li Zixuan's face immediately broke into a smile as he replied warmly, "And, very good." He immediately ordered someone to bring them back to the Supreme Court and personally hand them over to Minister Liu. This marquis will be there soon. Lu Rongui cupped his fists and accepted the order. This general obeys. Marquis, then this calamity. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, "Leave him here for now. This marquis still needs him. In a while, leave a few soldiers behind. This matter isn't over yet." Lu Ringue was stunned when he heard this. After a moment, he cupped his fists and said, "Why don't this general stay behind and let the others escort the four of them back to the Supreme Court?" Li Zixuan shook his head and said, "No need. Moreover, this marquis will only be at ease if you personally escort them. Quickly go. Then, this general will take his leave." Seeing Li Zixuan's insistence, Lu Ringue could only cup his fists and lead a few soldiers to escort the Heavenly Dragon sect members away. "Wow, Marquis, you are so powerful." At this moment, a clear and melodious voice of a young girl suddenly rang out from the side of the battlefield. Who else could it be but the young girl who was being chased by Du Yi? In the previous battle, Li Zixuan wielded the wind-chasing sword and released a series of extremely gorgeous sword moves. He had been suppressing Du Yi all this time. He was like a peerless sword immortal, awe-inspiring and insufferably arrogant. Young people worshipped heroes, and so did young girls. Thus, the young girl couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Li Zixuan's heart thumped as he smiled at this young girl. The girl had a pretty face and was dressed in very ordinary clothes. She didn't seem like the daughter of a great clan, but she spoke in an extremely orderly manner and was so mature that she didn't seem like a child of her age. It was probably because she had experienced far too many things in the past. More importantly, the extremely important secret letter that Li Junxian had sent back had been delivered to him through this young girl. Li Zixuan truly wanted to know what sort of relationship this girl had with Li Junxian and how she had received the secret letter from Li Junxian. In the past, this young girl only knew that Marquis was a Yamacho from Yinhuang College and was extremely knowledgeable, but I didn't think that Marquis's martial arts would also be so formidable. This young girl admires you. The young girl quickly walked up to Li Zixuan and then bowed like an adult to Li Zixuan as she praised. Her movements were somewhat stiff. She probably didn't do this sort of etiquette often. Li Zixuan smiled faintly and looked at the girl thoughtfully. "Ha! If this marquis remembers correctly, you were the one who delivered the secret letter to this marquis at noon, right? This time, you helped this marquis capture the venerable of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Little girl, what is your name? What reward do you want?" Upon hearing the word reward, the girl's eyes brightened and she excitedly said, "Marquis, this young girl's name is Chen Shuajian. I want money, a lot of money." "Chen Shuajian? You're Chen Shuajian?" Li Zixuan's pupils constricted and his heart shook violently. He never thought that this ordinary-looking, harmless little girl in front of him was the first woman in China's history to call herself the Empress. At the same time, Li Zixuan suddenly remembered that when he was in the north, Li Tai had told him in a telegram that he met a girl named Chen Shuajian in Chang, in city, who helped them solve the mystery of the doomsday levitation technique. Thus, Li Zixuan looked at Chen Shuajian with a strange expression and asked, "Didn't you use the levitation technique to ask a little fatty for 100 strings of coins as a reward?" How did you know, Marquis?" The girl covered her mouth in surprise and disbelief, but after a moment, she suddenly understood and said, "I understand. That little fatty inadvertently called himself the Prince of Wei, and the current Prince of Wei is studying at Yanhuang College. Marquis, as the Yamacho of Yanhuang College, it's not surprising that you know about this matter. After saying that, her little face couldn't help but become bitter. Speaking of which, she had previously cheated money from Li Zixuan's student. So how could Li Zixuan spare her now? Seeing the girl's expression, Li Zixuan couldn't help but laugh and say, "Haha, you're really smart, little girl. Don't worry. This marquis won't interfere in the matter between you and Qin Ke. But you said that you wanted a lot of money. Didn't Qin Ke give you 100 Tang yuan? Isn't it enough for a little girl like you?" Hearing Li Zixuan say that he wouldn't pursue the previous matter, the girl couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. She playfully stuck out her tongue and said with some embarrassment, "Thank you, Marquis, for letting bygones be bygones. This little girl doesn't need the money, goodbye. Oh, by the way, the master of the Zhang family, Zhang Dikang, is the accomplice of Monk Du and Marquis. Don't forget to take him away with you." After saying that, without waiting for Li Zixuan to react, she directly turned around and left. She was really straightforward. She gently waved her sleeves and left without a trace. Seeing this, Li Zixuan didn't force her to stay. After pondering for a moment, he ordered a soldier beside him. "Follow her and see where Chen Shuazhen lives and whether she has encountered any difficulties." He just saw that Chen Shuazhen's eyes were pure, and she was definitely not the kind of person who was blindly greedy and unprincipled. He thought that the reason why Chen Shuazhen kept saying money, money, money was very likely that she had encountered some difficulties that made her so obsessed with money. "Yes, Marquis." The soldier received the order and left. Li Zixuan looked at Dui and said in an unfriendly tone, "Dui, you heard what the little girl said just now. I heard that you have an accomplice. Quickly lead the way." "Yes, Marquis, this poor monk will lead the way for you." Dewey couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He knew who Chen Shuazhen was talking about. At this moment, he didn't dare to delay and hurriedly responded with a bow. After saying that, Dewey dragged his injured body and led Li Zixuan and the others to the Zhang family's house. Bang, bang, bang. "Open the door. Quickly open the door." After a while, they arrived at the door of the Zhang family's house. The right guard soldier beside, Li Zixuan hurriedly stepped forward and knocked on the door. Soon, the door was opened, and a young man who looked like a servant walked out. He was just about to complain when he saw the right guard soldiers in armor outside the door. He was suddenly shocked, and his attitude immediately became much better. He asked, Who are you? Why do you come to the Zhang family?" Seeing that the servant obviously didn't know Dui, it meant that Master Zhang had done a good job of keeping secrets. Li Zixuan didn't want to waste time with the servant. He nodded to the soldier beside him. The soldier stepped forward and directly pushed the servant aside and said loudly, "The imperial court is arresting a fugitive. Unrelated people, please leave." Hey, what fugitive? How can there be a fugitive in the Zhang family?" The manservant stomped his feet anxiously at the side, but no one paid any attention to him. Li Zixuan and his group arrived at the backyard under Du Yi's guidance. Before they entered the backyard, Li Zixuan heard someone shouting anxiously from inside, Master, something bad happened. Venerable Du Yi has been arrested. The imperial court has come to our house." "What? Where are they?" "We're here." Li Zixuan walked in quickly and shouted loudly. After entering the yard, he saw a servant in the backyard who was lying at the mouth of the well and shouting inside. Du Yi quickly explained, "Marquis, this is a dry well. I hid in this well with my disciples before. The master of the Zhang family must be inside now." Li Zixuan nodded slightly. No wonder he couldn't find Du Yi when he mobilized the imperial army and the right guard to search the whole city. It turned out that this bald donkey was hiding underground. He was really treacherous. "Go, bring Zhang Dikang up, and take this servant with you," Li Zixuan ordered. "Yes." Two soldiers immediately stepped forward. One of them held down the servant, and the other operated the well to pull Zhang Dikang up. Li Zixuan turned to look at Du Yi and asked faintly, "Is there anyone else who knows that you're hiding in the Zhang family?" He didn't want to spread the news of capturing Dewey, because once the dragon head of the dragon sect knew that Dewey was captured, he would likely hold back his troops or directly withdraw from the Snake Spirit Mountain. In this way, the imperial court would lose an excellent opportunity to catch the dragon sect in one fell swoop. This was what Lisa Schwann and Lier didn't want to see. Therefore, Lisa Schwann wanted to capture all the people who knew where Dewey was hiding. These people knew where Dewey was hiding, which meant that they were absolutely loyal to the dragon sect. In addition, if Dewey didn't return at night, they would definitely guess that he was captured by the imperial court. They were also the most likely to spread the news of Dewey's capture to the dragon sect. These hidden dangers must all be eliminated. Replying to Marquis, other than that, no one else knows that I'm hiding in the Zhang family. Dewey quickly replied, and Lisa Schwann nodded faintly. At this time, a well-dressed old man had been captured by the sergeants of the Right Guards. What are you doing? This old man has never done anything against the law. How can the Right Guards arrest people at will? Let this old man go. Previously, when Dewey went to chase after the peeping thief, Zhang Dikang thought that with Dewey's martial arts, catching a thief would be a piece of cake. Therefore, he waited in the well for Dewey and others to come back and continue the banquet. Who knew that Dewey did come back, but at this time, Dewey was already a prisoner and brought a group of Right Guard sergeants. Zhang Dikang's heart was instantly filled with fear. Zhang Deshun's family was soon alarmed. A noble woman and a well-dressed young man rushed in. When they saw Zhang Deshun being captured, they immediately cried and screamed. Take them away. Lisa Schwann didn't want to be entangled with the Zhang family too much. He waved his hand expressionlessly, and Zhang Deshun and the servant were all taken out. The group went straight to the Supreme Court. Chapter 1601. Rengue, take the Right Guards and surround the Supreme Court. Tonight, no one from the Supreme Court is allowed to leave. No one is allowed to leave. Do you understand? Outside the Supreme Court, after seeing Lu Dewey off, Lisa Schwann looked at Lu Rengue and solemnly instructed. Hearing this, Lu Rengue felt a little awkward. He was just a lowly officer in the Right Guards. How could he have the authority to surround the Supreme Court? Wasn't this drawing hatred to the Right Guards? But when he saw Lisa Schwann's solemn face, he thought for a moment and immediately reacted. Marquis is worried that someone from the Supreme Court will spread the news of Dewey's arrest, thus alerting the enemy and causing Dragon Sect to not dare to come down the mountain again. Lisa Schwann had also told Lu Rengue about the Dragon Sect's secret letter that Li Junxian had sent back. That was why Lu Rengue had such a guess. Yes, but not all of them. Lisa Schwann nodded and then shook his head. Half a month ago, in order to obtain the Heavenly Dragon's sacred water and swear loyalty to the Dragon Sect, the Supreme Court's warden Yi Hong colluded with outsiders to kill a key witness, the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank in Xinfeng County, Jin Wanfu. Since the Supreme Court has Yi Hong, there might be dozens or even hundreds of Yi Hong who are loyal to the Dragon Sect and could betray the court at any time. Once the news of Dewey's capture spreads, the spies of the Dragon Sect in Chang will definitely do everything they can to pass the news to the Snake Spirit Mountain. At that time, whether the Dragon Head of the Dragon Sect will dare to send troops as scheduled will be an unknown. In addition, if those with evil intentions in Chang and know that Dewey has been captured, they will probably have scruples and not give themselves away. As he finished speaking, the corners of Lisa Schwann's mouth curled into a meaningful sneer. Naturally, he was referring to the officials in Chang and city who might have colluded with the Dragon Sect. Today, he had mobilized 5,000 soldiers from the Right Guards and deployed an inescapable net near the houses of the key suspects. Was it not to wait for those officials to open the city gates for the Dragon Sect tomorrow, or to create chaos? Only when Li Er dealt with those old officials who were still loyal to Li Jiansheng would there be no controversy, and Oldie would not be labeled as narrow-minded. Lu Rengue's expression turned solemn as he cupped his fists and said, "This general obeys. I won't let anyone walk out of the Supreme Court tonight." "Yes, thank you for your hard work." Lisa Schwann patted Lu Rengue's shoulder and walked into the Supreme Court. Under the guidance of a bailiff, Li Zixuan came to a torture chamber in the Supreme Court. Lu Dui, Daizhou, Sun Fujia, and Du Yi were all inside. However, Du Yi had changed into a white prison uniform and his hands and feet were shackled in a tie shape. He was tied to a wooden frame. When Li Zixuan pushed open the door and entered, there was an interrogation going on inside. Marquis Yonglan, you're here. Hearing the movement, Lu Dui and the others turned to look. Then, Lu Dui stood up and greeted Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan cupped his fists and returned the greeting. He went straight to the point and said, "How did the interrogation go? What did this Du Yi recruit?" Hearing this, Sun Fujia smiled bitterly and cupped her fists. "Marquis, this Du Yi is very stubborn. He said that he will only confess if you come. Otherwise, even if we torture him, he won't say a word." "There's actually such a thing?" Li Zixuan frowned, and then he walked up to Du Yi and asked in a cold voice, "Du Yi, since things have come to this, do you still refuse to realize your error and continue down this path until it's dark?" Du Yi raised his head and looked at Li Zixuan. He asked, "If this poor monk tells you the truth about the dragon sect, will you spare this poor monk?" Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said, "Are you trying to negotiate with this marquis?" Thinking about how he almost died under Li Zixuan's sword, Du Yi couldn't help but tremble. He hurriedly shook his head. "This poor monk only wants to find a way to live. I hope Marquis Yong and can fulfill my wish. You don't have the right to negotiate with this marquis." Li Zixuan turned around and said indifferently with his hands behind his back, "Even if you don't say anything, the dragon sect will still be defeated when they attack Chang and city tomorrow. This marquis is only asking you to give you a chance." "What? How do you know that the dragon sect will attack the city tomorrow?" Du Yi was shocked when he heard this. He was planning to use this information to exchange for a chance to survive, but Li Zixuan's words completely extinguished his hope. This marquis not only knows that the dragon sect will attack Chang and city tomorrow, but I also know that the dragon sect is hiding in Snake Spirit Mountain. Li Zixuan snorted coldly and threw another heavy bomb at Du Yi. Du Yi's mouth opened in shock. Li Zixuan's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He looked at the shocked Du Yi and asked, "Are you very puzzled why this marquis didn't report to the imperial court and send an army to besiege Snake Spirit Mountain after knowing that the dragon sect is in there?" Du Yi nodded. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was self-evident. Li Zixuan stared into Du Yi's eyes and said word by word, "Because the current emperor has already set up an inescapable net in and outside the city, waiting for the dragon sect to fall into the net. The dragon head of the dragon sect wants to use the incident of the imperial ancestral temple to incite the people to rebel against the imperial court and cause chaos in the city so that he can attack the city, right?" Du Yi's eyes finally revealed a trace of fear. He said in a trembling voice, "Impossible. Only the dragon head and I know about this matter. How could you know that we buried something in the imperial ancestral temple? You are the devil. You are the devil." Li Zixuan sneered. "If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Your plan that you thought was foolproof is full of loopholes in my eyes. Therefore, the internal and external troubles of Chang and city have been eliminated. We are only waiting for your dragon head to walk into the net tomorrow. If you are still unwilling to tell the truth, then this marquis will kill you now. Anyway, if you don't say something, there will be someone else who will." Merciless. Li Zixuan's words mercilessly destroyed all the thoughts in Du Yi's heart. He stared at Li Zixuan, his eyes revealing shock, fear, and unwillingness. Yes, he was unreconciled. After a long time, Du Yi sighed dejectedly and muttered to himself, No wonder the dragon head said that you are the biggest variable in our plan. Only you can break our dragon-slaying plan. Now it seems that the dragon sect really lost because of you. Hateful that Tuju Estate Preceptor attacked Yanwang College. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come all the way from the northern part of the Tang Empire to Chang'an. Hateful. Li Zixuan was speechless. Using heavenly thunder to ignite fireworks, gunpowder, sulfur, and charcoal. If he hadn't happened to encounter such a thing, no one in the entire Chang and city would have been able to see through this plot. In other words, although Wu Jie had attacked the Yanwang Academy, he had unknowingly helped the Tang imperial court. This was truly a case of fortune and misfortune, depending on one's misfortune. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujia couldn't help but open their mouths. At this moment, their hearts were filled with joy. Of course, it wasn't because Yinhuang College was attacked by Wu Jie, but because Li Zexuan returned before the dragon sex plot. Otherwise, even if Chang and city wasn't captured, the imperial court would have suffered heavy losses. Of course, the three of them were convinced by the second half of Du Yi's words. Even the arrogant Dai Zhou had to admit that if he was the one investigating the case, he definitely wouldn't be able to see through the dragon sect conspiracy in Chang and city in a single day. Although this poor monk knows that he doesn't have the qualifications to talk terms with Marquis, this poor monk still wants to beg Marquis to let this poor monk live. Although Marquis has seen through the series of conspiracies deployed by the dragon sect inside and outside Chang and city, I'm sure Marquis doesn't know about the other matters of the sect. I'm willing to tell you the truth. After a moment of silence, Du Yi looked up at Li Zexuan and said sincerely. His tone was no longer as firm as before. His previous words more or less carried a threat, but now it was more of a plea. The initiative of the conversation was already in Li Zexuan's hands. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujia were all experienced interrogators. How could they not see the change in the situation? The three of them couldn't help but give Li Zexuan a big thumbs up in their hearts. Li Zexuan said indifferently, "If you don't speak, you will die now. If you speak, this Marquis may give you a chance to live on account of your sincerity. The choice is up to you. Anyway, the other matters of the dragon sect are not important to the overall situation. Even if you don't speak, after the dragon sect is annihilated tomorrow, this Marquis can let the others speak." Secure in his backing, Li Zexuan put on a fearless look, further grasping the initiative of the conversation and once again breaking down the line of defense in Du Yi's heart. Du Yi's face was pale. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, this poor monk will say everything. I hope that Marquis Yong and can let this poor monk live on account of this poor monk's honest confession. This poor monk will immediately return to India and never take a step into Great Tang. This fellow's every sentence was survival. His desire to live was simply overflowing. You speak first." Li Zexuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief, then turned around and sat beside Sun Fujia. Sun Fujia was already holding a pen, ready to record the contents of Du Yi's confession. Because they were worried that the secret would be leaked, there were only Li Zexuan, Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Sun Fujia, and Du Yi in this torture room. There were no bailiffs, jailers, or clerks to record the contents of the interrogation. Therefore, Sun Fujia, the Shaoqing of the Supreme Court, could only work as a clerk. "Your Majesty, Marquis Yong and requests an audience." At around 9 o'clock in the evening, the Suite du Hall was still brightly lit. Zhao Song walked in quietly and reported to Lier, who was sitting on the seat of honor with his chin resting on his hand. Is there news from the Supreme Court? Let him in." Lier's eyes lit up and immediately recovered from his thoughts. He quickly straightened his body and ordered. Yes. Zhao Song received the order and left. After a while, Li Zexuan walked in from outside the hall. He cupped his hands and said to Lier, "Your subject Li Zexuan pays his respects to your Majesty." The Supreme Court was in the outer palace and was only separated from the inner palace by a city wall. At this time, the city gate between the inner and outer palace was naturally sealed. However, the situation was urgent now. Furthermore, Li Zexuan still had the golden token bestowed by Lier. Naturally, he could openly pass through the gate of heaven influence and enter the Suite du Hall of Taiji Palace. "Rise." Lier waved his hand and quickly asked, "How was the interrogation? Did Du Yi confess truthfully?" Chapter 1602. Gold Medal? What gold medal? Inside the Sweet Nectar Hall, Li Zexuan's narration revealed the dragon sect's rapid development and meticulous planning in the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing the local officials, recruiting the shopkeeper of Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the imperial ancestral temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Er grasped a very crucial point. His tiger eyes narrowed as he asked in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medal found on Du Yi's body." Li Zexuan was silent for a moment and took out a gold medal from his waist. The gold medal looked very light, but Li Zexuan held it especially heavy because he knew that this gold medal was related to the lives of many people. Without waiting for Li Er's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to receive the gold medal and presented it. Li Er held the gold medallion with one hand and placed it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank as he saw the words East Palace written on the gold medallion. Beside it was a small line of words, Wuda Yuan Year System. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu gave up the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. Since then, Li Jiansheng had officially become the first master of the great Tang Eastern Palace. This was an Eastern Palace gold medallion from the first year of Wuda. The hidden meaning behind this was something that anyone with a bit of knowledge could understand. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jiansheng that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zexuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter, and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning for the dragon sect to attack the city. According to Du Yi, the dragon sect has a total of 3 of these gold medals. They are respectively kept by the dragon head, the judge, and him. Li Er's face was as calm as water. Li Zexuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the dragon head of the dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zexuan put down the command token. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zexuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zexuan cupped his fists and replied, "Replying to your Majesty, Du Yi said that he didn't know the name of their dragon head, nor his identity. This was because the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon Sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The people of Heavenly Dragon Sect only addressed him as Dragon Head, but no one knew his name or his origin." Li Er was slightly disappointed when he heard this. His gaze gradually turned cold. He paused and said, "No matter what, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon Sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the Heavenly Dragon Sect's dragon head. If possible, we'll fight the Heavenly Dragon Sect tomorrow and capture him alive." Li Zexuan cupped his fists and accepted the order. This subject obeys the decree. The hall fell into silence. Although Li Er and Li Jiansheng were brothers, the 2 brothers fought each other to the death for the throne. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jiansheng had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Er. Now, because of the Eastern Palace's gold medallion, the name of King Shi Li Jiansheng once again appeared in the palace. However, for the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon Sect, it was not a good thing. Replying to your Majesty, this time Du Yi sneaked into Chang and city with this gold medallion and visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang'an City. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the palace. This subject has a list of names. Please take a look. The hall was silent for a while. Li Zexuan took out a piece of paper filled with words from his sleeve and handed it over to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It cannot be said that it was not heavy. Li Er took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked at it carefully. Gold medallion? What gold medallion? In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zexuan explained the rapid development and meticulous planning of the Heavenly Dragon Sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, recruiting the manager of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the imperial ancestral temple, all of these schemes were shocking to the eye. Li Er grasped a very crucial point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zishuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without waiting for Li Er's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Er held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words East Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan Year. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Emperor Yang Guang of Sui in Jiangdu. Not long after, Emperor Gong of Sui, Yang Yu, abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jiansheng officially became the first master of the East Palace of Tang Dynasty. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda, the hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because the case involved King Shi Li Jiansheng that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zishuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter, and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui, the minister of the Supreme Court, did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until the next morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Du Yi, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the Judge, and him. Li Zishuan's face was gloomy, while Li Zishuan added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zishuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zishuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and replied, "Replying to your Majesty, Du Yi also said that he didn't know the name of their dragon head, nor his identity. This was because the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people only addressed him as Dragon Head, but no one knew his name or his origin." Li Zishuan was slightly disappointed when he heard this. His eyes gradually turned cold. After a pause, he said, "In any case, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. If possible, tomorrow when we fight with the Heavenly Dragon sect, capture him alive." Li Zishuan cupped his fists and said, "This subject obeys your Majesty." The hall fell into silence. Although Li Zishuan and Li Jiansheng were brothers, for the sake of the throne, these two brothers fought to the death. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jiansheng had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Zishuan. Now, because of a gold medallion from the Eastern Palace, the name of King Shi Li Jiansheng once again appeared in the Imperial Palace. However, for the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, it was not a good thing. Replying to your Majesty, this time Du Yi sneaked into Chang and city with this gold medallion and visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang'an City. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the Imperial Palace. This subject has a list here. Please take a look. The hall was silent for a while. Li Zishuan took out a piece of paper full of words from his sleeve and handed it over to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Zishuan took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. Gold medallion? What gold medallion? In the Suite Du Hall, Li Zishuan explained the rapid development and careful planning of the Heavenly Dragon sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, taking the shopkeeper of a Yanhuang bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these schemes were shocking. Li Zishuan grasped a very crucial point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zishuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without needing Li Zishuan's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Zishuan held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words Eastern Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan year system. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Wang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jiansheng officially became the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda from the Eastern Palace. The hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jiansheng that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zishuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter, and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Dui, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the Judge, and him. Li Zishuan's face was gloomy like water. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zishuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light. He suddenly looked at Li Zishuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and replied, "Replying to your majesty, he also said that he didn't know the name of their dragon head, nor his identity. This was because the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people only called him Dragon Head, but no one knew his surname, his name, or his origins." Hearing this, Li Zishuan was slightly disappointed. His eyes gradually turned cold. After a pause, he said, "In any case, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. If possible, tomorrow when we fight with the Heavenly Dragon sect, capture him alive." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "This subject obeys your majesty." The hall fell into silence. Although Li Zishuan and Li Jiansheng were brothers, for the sake of the throne, these two brothers fought to the death. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jiansheng had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Zishuan. Now, because of a gold medallion from the Eastern Palace, the name of King Shi Li Jiansheng once again appeared in the Imperial Palace. However, for the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, it was not a good thing. Replying to your majesty, this time Dui sneaked into Chang and city with this gold medallion. He visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang and city. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the Imperial Palace. This subject has a list of names here. Your Majesty, please take a look. The hall was silent for a while. Li Zishuan took out a piece of paper full of words from his sleeve and handed it to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Zishuan took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. Gold medallion? What gold medallion? In the Suite Du Hall, Li Zishuan explained the rapid development and careful planning of the Heavenly Dragon sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, taking the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Zishuan grasped a very important point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Dui's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zishuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zishuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without needing Li Zishuan's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Zishuan held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words Eastern Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan Year System. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yangguang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jiansheng officially became the first master of the great Tang Eastern Palace. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda from the Eastern Palace. The hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jiansheng that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zishuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter, and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Dui, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 such gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the dragon head, the judge, and him. Li Zishuan's face was gloomy. Below the court, Li Zishuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zishuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zishuan and asked in a deep voice. Chapter 1603. Opium was first brought back from the western regions by Zhang Qian in 139 BC when he was on a diplomatic mission to the western regions. It was then introduced into China. In the 7th or 8th century AD, opium poppy was introduced into China from India and other places. There was another record of opium poppy in the history books. In the second year of Qianfeng, 667, king of Fiumo, sent an envoy to present Diega Fuxiong, formerly known as the Qin, or the Eastern Roman Empire. Chinese people pronounced the A sound as the crow sound. But at that time, it was more commonly known as Thiaka, also known as Diega. It was said that the evaluation was thousands of divine prescriptions, 800 medicinal names. The yellow pill can be 1,000 good for curing 10,000 diseases. Because of the bright and dazzling flowers of the opium poppy, when it was introduced into the Tang Dynasty, people initially called it Aphrodite. Opium poppy was only an ornamental plant. Later, it gradually evolved into a kind of drug and was also an important raw material for modern heroin. Opium poppy cultivation in China began in the late 7th or early 8th century. A Tang Dynasty poem wrote, "Blossoming emptiness is better than grass. How can it help the people when it is strong? But laughing at the field of rice and millet, not smelling the string pipe of youth." This was the earliest record of opium poppy cultivation that could be found in China. Rice sack flower is another name for opium poppy. Li Zishuan did not study history in his previous life, nor did he study medicine. Naturally, he did not know that Diega was opium poppy, nor did he personally come into contact with opium poppy flowers. But he had seen in a TV series called Fantasy Night of the Great Tang. The first case in the TV series was related to Aphrodite. It was about someone using a cruise ship to carry out a transaction with Aphrodite, resulting in a tragedy. Therefore, previously at the Supreme Court, when Dui drew the petals of the Diega flower and said, "This flower is bright and dazzling, comparable to a hibiscus, combined with the pain-relieving effect of the Heavenly Dragon sect jade lake holy water and the addictive side effects," Li Zishuan instantly realized that this Diega could very well be the poppy, which was also the Aphrodite that the people of the Middle Tang Dynasty spoke of. Lu Duri, Dai Zhou, Sun Fujia, and the others might not know the horrors of the opium poppy, but Li Zishuan was a modern man of the 21st century. He had read about the modern history of China and naturally knew the heavy damage that opium had brought to this ancient country. In the 19th century, the China of China was almost wiped out by the Western powers because of opium. Now that Li Zishuan had an official position and power, he naturally had to do his best to stop the opium poppy from wreaking havoc in the Great Tang. In the sweet dew hall, after hearing Li Zixuan's words, Li Er's breathing quickened. The scene that Li Zixuan had described was truly too terrifying. Li Er's eyes widened as he said with a face full of shock, "Aphrodite, there is actually such a terrifying flower in this world." Li Zixuan once again cupped his hands and said, "What this subject said just now is absolutely true. I hope that your majesty will carefully consider it and not look down on Aphrodite. Otherwise, once this thing becomes rampant in the Great Tang, no one will be able to stop it." Li Er's expression was grim. After a moment of silence, he nodded and said, "Good." After settling the matter with the dragon sect, we will issue a decree to completely ban the Jade Lake holy water and list Aphrodite as a forbidden flower. We will strictly order all future sovereigns of the Great Tang not to touch this taboo. If they violate this decree, they will be punished by both humans and gods. No matter what, Li Er could be considered a relatively open-minded sovereign. Of course, the most important thing was that Li Zixuan had said it so solemnly and had even mentioned his master, spiritual master Ling Xiu. Old Li had no choice but to believe it. "Your Majesty is wise." Li Zixuan inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. The ancients attached great importance to filial piety. Even the Son of Heaven could not override filial piety. With this system set by Li Er, at the very least, it could ensure that there would be no large-scale cultivation of opium poppies in China in the Tang Dynasty. Li Er frowned and asked again, "But according to what you said, wouldn't the people of Chang, and who recently joined the dragon sect, be addicted to the Jade Lake holy water and unable to leave it?" Li Zixuan thought for a moment and shook his head. "Probably not. According to Du Yi, there was a limited amount of Yaoqi holy water, but there were tens of thousands of Heavenly Dragon sect members. Therefore, not every Heavenly Dragon sect disciple could get Yaoqi holy water every day. Even their inner disciples could only get a bowl every once in a while. Most people would not get addicted to this level of consumption. As for those few people who are already addicted, after locking them up for a while, they can forcibly kick their addiction to the Jade Lake holy water. That's good." Li Er nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at Li Zixuan with a gratified expression and said, "From the time we gave you the task of eliminating the dragon sect's conspiracy in the morning until now, you have captured Du Yi and thoroughly understood the dragon sect's deployment. Marquis Yong, and you have done well this time. After we destroy the dragon sect tomorrow, we will reward you together. It's getting late now. You should go back and rest. Your Majesty is too kind. This is what this subject should do. It's getting late. This subject will take his leave." Li Zixuan said modestly and then cupped his hands to take his leave. Of course, he was going back to his old residence in Yongla Lane at night, not to the Supreme Court. Although he had asked everyone in the Supreme Court not to leave tonight, this did not include himself. First of all, he would definitely not leak the news that Du Yi was caught. Secondly, there was no place for him to rest in the Supreme Court. In addition, he had an important thing to do after returning to his old residence. "Zhao Song, Jun Xian is not in Chang'an. Tomorrow morning, you will lead the 100 cavalry to cooperate with the right guards and secretly monitor the officials on the list. If they do anything strange, there is no need to report to me. Capture them immediately." After Li Zixuan left, Li Er closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes and said to Zhao Song. Zhao Song's expression turned solemn as he bowed and accepted the order. This old servant obeys. However, he was secretly sighing in his heart. "Looks like tomorrow's Chang and city will be bathed in blood." Li Er nodded and ordered, "Go to the Supreme Court now and personally bring Du Yi out. Bring him to the 100 cavalry barracks and let them watch over him." In Du Yi's confession, not only did he describe the dragon sect's deployment over the past year, he also admitted that he had attempted to kidnap Li Chengxian and Chang'e in Shi City this morning. Naturally, Li Er wished for such a heinous person to die immediately. However, Du Yi was a crucial witness in the current situation of Chang, and Li Er did not want him to die immediately. To ensure his safety, Li Er had no choice but to let Zhao Song bring him to the 100 Cavalry Department. After all, in today's turbulent situation, the only army in Chang and city that Li Er could absolutely trust was the 100 Cavalry Barracks. Understood. Zhao Song cupped his hands in acknowledgement and then turned to leave the hall for the Supreme Court. Chapter 1604. Is there still no news of Du, Yi, and Chang'an? The dragon head of the dragon sect asked in a low voice as he sat in a hut in the middle of the Snake Spirit Mountain. Other than him, the only other person in the room was the finger-breaker magistrate, Zhang Liang. Therefore, he was definitely asking Zhang Liang this question. Dragon head, the 4 gates of Chang and are still closed. Our men still have no news of the venerable. Zhang Liang bowed. The iron-masked man fell silent. After a while, he said slowly, "No news is the best news. This means that Du Yi has not fallen into the hands of the Imperial Court. Otherwise, the Imperial Court would have relaxed the ban. Dragonhead is wise." Zhang Liang could not help but flatter him. The iron-masked man was unmoved. He continued to ask, "How are the preparations on General Luo's side?" Zhang Liang pondered for a moment and replied, "Dragonhead, everything is normal on General Luo's side. Tomorrow, at 3 o'clock a.m., the 20,000 Sky Dragon Army and 30,000 loyal Sky Dragon sect followers will set off and rush to Chang'an City." The iron-masked man nodded with satisfaction and said, "Good. When our army reaches the city of Chang, and Du Yi will instigate the people to create chaos for us and open the city gates. With the cooperation from the inside and the outside, this impregnable city of Chang and can be broken in half a day. By then, the entire country will be mine." The iron-masked man could not hide his excitement. Zhang Liang cupped his hands and said, "I congratulate you in advance for your victory and ascension to the throne." "Huh, forget it. It's getting late. You should go and rest. There's still a big battle tomorrow." The iron-masked man's worries disappeared. He waved his hand and said, "I'll leave now. This subordinate will take his leave. Dragonhead should also rest early." Zhang Liang cupped his hands and left the hut. "Hey, Junjian, it's so late. Why aren't you asleep yet?" Late at night, in a tent at the foot of the northern peak of the Snake Spirit Mountain, a burly man muttered softly. After a while, another man's voice was heard. "Brother Nyo, I can't sleep." "Hey, you brat, I'm going to pee outside. If you can't sleep, you can come with me." The man with the coarse voice at the beginning grinned and sat up from the couch. Then, he quietly left the tent. Soon, the other man followed him out. They came to an open space a few dozen steps away from the tent. After the burly man finished relieving himself, he brought the man to sit on the lawn and asked, "What's wrong?" "There's going to be a war tomorrow. Are you scared now?" "I'm a little scared. After all, I've only hunted rabbits and pheasants in the mountains before. I've never killed anyone before." "Hey, what was there to be afraid of? You'll get used to it once you get used to it. You'll get used to it. Big Brother Meng, have you been on the battlefield before?" "In the past." Sigh. "In the past, I followed the Imperial Army to the north to fight against the Turks. I didn't expect that I would become a rebel army that is about to attack Chang and City." "What? Big Brother Meng, you used to be a government soldier? What's wrong? Doesn't seem like it." "I'm not bragging. Back in the Yinzhou region, I killed more Turks than I can count with one hand. But Big Brother Meng, since you used to be a government soldier of the Great Tang, why now? Why did you join the Dragon Sect and rebel against the Imperial Court?" "Big Brother Meng, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean anything else. Hey, a rebel army is a rebel army. There's no point in quibbling. I didn't want to betray the Imperial Court, nor did I want to be a rebel. But sometimes, I can't do whatever I want. I'm from Qingzhou. Last summer, there was a famine in Qingzhou. Although the provincial government had allocated some food, many people still starved to death. In order to survive, I went to the city to move goods. My daily salary was only enough to buy a caddy of rice. One day, when I returned home, I found that the entire village had been ransacked by the bandits nearby. The remaining 5 caddies of rice at home were also taken away by the bandits. In order to protect the rice at home, my mother was severely injured by the bandits. I wanted to bring my mother to the city for treatment the next day, but the next morning, a group of people came to the village. Not only did they give the villagers porridge, but they also treated the people who had been injured by the bandits the day before. At that time, my mother's injuries were very serious, and several of her bones were broken. Originally, I didn't expect those people to be able to heal my mother. Who knew that a monk in that group not only quickly reconnected my mother's bones, he also gave my mother a bowl of Jade Lake holy water. After my mother drank it, her body immediately stopped hurting. She kept saying that the monk was the reincarnation of a Buddha. Later on, the dragon sect started recruiting disciples in Qingzhou. In order to repay their kindness, I joined the dragon sect. In addition, although my mother's previous injuries were treated, she had to drink the Jade Lake holy water once every 5 days. Otherwise, her body would hurt terribly again. In order to obtain the Jade Lake holy water, I trained hard in the dragon sect. Coupled with my previous experience on the battlefield, I was quickly assigned to the Earth Emanations camp. After that, I met you. I didn't expect Big Brother Ming to have such an experience. To tell you the truth, the majority of the people in the Heavenly Dragon Army have received favors from the Dragon Head or the Venerable One. Thus, even though we know that the Dragon Head is going to attack Chang and City tomorrow and completely fall out with the Imperial Court, none of us cowered. All right, it's getting late. Let's go back to the tent and continue resting. The army will set off early tomorrow morning. After saying that, the burly man shook his head and walked back to the tent with a sigh. Under the moonlight, Li Juanxian's mouth was agape as he looked at the burly man's back and sighed. It turns out that many people in the Heavenly Dragon Army have a deep past behind them. Attacking Chang and City and betraying the Imperial Court might not have been their original intention. Some of them only wanted to repay the favor they had received from the Dragon Sect. However, the price for doing so would probably be very heavy. At this moment, Li Juanxian's heart began to waver. In the past, he had thought that the Dragon Sect were mostly greedy and evil people. As the commander of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry Department, it was naturally his duty to eliminate such evil people without any psychological burden or pressure. However, after hearing the words of the burly man surnamed Meng, he began to waver. Such a loyal and righteous man, especially one who had accomplished great feats for the Great Tang, should not be executed for being a rebel. The next morning, before the sun had even risen, the peak of the Snake Spirit Mountain and the base of the mountain to the north were bustling with activity. Everyone get up. Focus. After breakfast, the army will set off. Once we take Chang and City, we won't have to return to this damned place. Chang'an's delicacies, wine, and beauties are all yours to enjoy. The soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon Army and the members of the Dragon Sect were all roused from their dreams. The generals of the various camps were shuttling through the various tents, their voices incessantly berating and brainwashing. Reality proved that the brainwashing of the generals was very successful. Many of them were instantly energized when they heard that Chang'an's delicacies, wine, and beauties are all yours to enjoy. Early in the morning, all of them were brimming with energy and wanted nothing more than a charge into Chang and City and fight to the death with the defenders. Since betraying the Imperial Court was unavoidable, they might as well defeat the Imperial Court and take over Chang'an. Perhaps they might even become nobles and generals. This was the mindset of the majority of the Dragon Sect members. At the start, when they learned that the Dragon Head of the Dragon Sect was attacking Chang, and they had been terrified and uneasy. But after experiencing the high-pressure policies of the Dragon Head and the constant brainwashing, these people were no longer so resistant to betraying the Imperial Court. Rather than saying that their mentality had changed, it was more accurate to say that they had been forced into a corner. Previously, many of them had wanted to leave after learning that the Dragon Sect was going to betray the Imperial Court. But in the end, those people all had extremely tragic endings. This was also a very good warning for the rest of the Dragon Sect. Unable to escape the control of the Dragon Sect, coupled with the brainwashing of the generals, many people began to accept their fate. At the same time, they more or less held on to a sliver of hope. What if the dragon sect really took over Chang and city? Then wouldn't they all become heroes of the dragon sect? Thinking of this, many of the dragon sect members couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. An hour later, the heavenly dragon army and the dragon sect members gathered at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain after breakfast. At this time, the sky was filled with dark clouds, and it was drizzling. Iron Face and Dragon Head of the dragon sect came to the front of the army, and the scene immediately quieted down. His eyes scanned the crowd before he finally opened his mouth and said, "People of the dragon sect, Taishang Laojun has been telling this seat in dreams recently. He told this seat that the current emperor killed his brother and imprisoned his father. He did not obtain the throne properly and will be punished by the heavens. And today, the retribution of the heavens will come true. So today, this seat will bring you to Chang and city to see what kind of retribution Li Shimin will suffer. Since the current emperor is cruel and heartless, this seat will lead you to overthrow this rotten imperial court. With the help of the gods, the dragon sect will be invincible. After we take over Chang and city, this seat will become the new emperor, and you will become heroes of the founding of the empire. You will enjoy endless wealth, luxurious clothes, beautiful women, and Jade Lake holy water. This seat will let all of you enjoy 100 years of wealth without sickness or pain." The iron-masked man's words were a dream from a god, and it was also about fame and fortune. His words immediately ignited the hearts of the Heavenly Dragon Legion and the Dragon Sect. As soon as he finished speaking, a tsunami of cheers erupted from below. "Dragon Sect will win. Dragon Sect will win. Dragon Sect will win." The iron-masked man nodded in satisfaction. When the cheers died down, he pulled out his sword and shouted, "Army, move out. Attack Chang and city." "Yes, sir." 50,000 people answered in unison. The huge sound reverberated in the valley, causing the sky to change color. "General Luo, this battle is in your hands." The iron-masked man turned around and patted the young and robust general beside him as he said solemnly, "Let's go." "Don't worry, my lord. If the plan in Chang and city goes smoothly, this general will definitely take down Chang and city before noon." The young general cupped his fist respectfully. "Good." With General Luo's words, this seat can rest assured. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect laughed loudly. Chapter 1605. Why hasn't Chang and city opened its gates today? Yes, I hunted a pheasant yesterday and was planning to sell it in Chang and city today, but who knew that the gates of Chang and city were still closed? What should we do? If we wait until tomorrow, it will probably stink. My San Lang went into the city to sell eggs yesterday and hasn't come back yet. When will the gates of Chang and city open? Early in the morning, the 4 gates of Chang and city were surrounded by many people who wanted to leave or enter the city. Seeing that the gates were still closed, the people could not help but discuss. Most of the people inside the gates entered the city yesterday morning, but the gates were suddenly closed. They could not leave the city in time and could only stay in the city for the night. Most of the people outside the city were the relatives of these people. Because they were worried about them, they came to Chang and city early in the morning to take a look. Marquis, according to the report of the spies, the rebel army of the Dragon Sect has left Snake Spirit Mountain and is heading towards Chang and city. There are about 50,000 people. They will reach Chang and city in about an hour. Li Zishuan woke up exceptionally early today. After breakfast, he went to the camp of the Right Guards. At this time, Lu Renge hurriedly trotted over and bowed to Li Zishuan with cupped fists. More than 50,000 people. Hearing this, Li Zishuan's eyes flashed and then whispered softly, "It seems that Du Yi is telling the truth." In last night's interrogation, Du Yi not only told Li Zishuan about the development of the Dragon Sect in the past year, he also told him about the military strength of the Dragon Sect. So when he heard Lu Ringue say that the Dragon Sect's army had more than 50,000 people, Li Zishuan remembered Du Yi's confession last night. He thought to himself that since this monk's attitude was so sincere, should he let him live? Shaking his head, Li Zishuan threw away the messy thoughts in his mind. He looked at Lu Rengue and asked solemnly, "Have the guard been arranged for the 4 city gates?" Lu Rengue replied with cupped fists, "It is said that His Majesty issued a secret order early this morning, ordering Duke Wei to lead the left and right guards, left and right guards, left and right guards, and left and right guards to guard the 9 city gates in the east, west, and north of Chang'an City. Now, the guard to the 9 city gates have been replaced by the men arranged by Duke Wei. When the rebel army arrives, Duke Wei will lead the army to stop the rebels from attacking the city from the east, west, and north." Li Zishuan frowned. "Who will guard the south gate?" To be honest, the dragon sect would most likely attack from the south of Chang'an City, but Li Zishuan didn't arrange for the 3 city gates in the south. This made Li Zishuan puzzled. Lu Rengui's face turned serious. He cupped his fists and said, "Marquis, before you came, Supervisor Zhao came to pass on His Majesty's verbal order. Today, the defense of Chang'an City's south gate will be guarded by the left and right guards, and will be commanded by you, Marquis." "Let this Marquis command?" Li Zishuan's eyes widened. Even though he had just fought with the Tuju estate preceptor in the north, that was only because of his own bravery. To have him command an army in battle, especially a battle to defend a city, to him, this was the first time he had ever done it. "Yes, Marquis." Lu Rengue nodded his head with certainty. Li Zishuan opened his mouth with a helpless expression, but now that things had come to this, he could only accept his fate. Lu Rengue suddenly thought of something and continued, "That's right, Marquis. This morning, His Majesty also decreed that today's morning court assembly is temporarily cancelled due to his ill health. You don't have to rush to the palace to attend the morning court assembly." "There's such a thing?" Li Zishuan was stunned at first. Then he suddenly realized, His Majesty is wise. This move can let those officials who colluded with the Dragon Sect lower their guard and help the Dragon Sect army outside the city. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for these people to give themselves away. If Lier had ordered Li Jing to lead the 6 guards to the various city towers early in the morning, it would create a sense of urgency that Chang'an City was about to be attacked by the enemy. In this way, those officials in King Shi's faction would definitely suspect that Lier had already known that Dragon Sect was about to attack the city. In addition, if Lier did not cancel the morning court assembly today, there would definitely be officials in the morning court who would ask him to give the order to lift the blockade of Chang'an City. At that time, he would be in a dilemma. So when Li Jing led the army to secretly take over the city defense, Lier came to cancel the morning court assembly by claiming to be ill. Not only did this avoid the suspicions of some officials, it also gave those people a chance to collude with the Dragon Sect outside the city. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Tell the hidden sentries to be alert. Don't let anyone discover them. Once there's a situation, there's no need to report it. Just arrest them directly. Li Zishuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Lu Rengue and said in a deep voice, since old Li Zishuan attached so much importance to those officials who might rebel, then he, Li Zishuan, had no reason to not attach importance to them. "Yes, Marquis." Lu Rengue cupped his fists and was about to turn and leave when Li Zishuan called out to him, "Hey, wait." Lu Rengue quickly stopped in his tracks, only to hear Li Zishuan ask again, "Are there many citizens outside the city gates waiting to leave or enter?" Lu Rengue was stunned for a moment before nodding. "That's right. This general went to the south gate an hour ago to patrol and saw many citizens surrounding the city gates." Li Zishuan pursed his lips and pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? Send people to the city gates to disperse the citizens and tell them that the city gates will only open today. Tell them to return to their homes and don't waste any time at the city gates. Remember, no matter what method you use, you must drive the citizens back to their homes. But there is one rule: you must not harm the citizens." Once the 50,000 Dragon Sect troops arrive at Chang'an City, It would be too late for the commoners at the city gates to escape. Moreover, they would most likely be captured by the dragon sect to be used as meat shields. Li Zishuan knew that many people would be injured or even killed in this battle, but he wanted to do everything within his power to minimize unnecessary casualties. So what if he lied and deceived people? Open the city gates at midnight? Marquis, what if we fail to destroy Heavenly Dragon's sect before the end of the day? Although Lu Ringue understood Li Zishuan's intention, he was still worried. Li Zishuan said decisively, "There are no ifs. Do as I say. Before the dragon sect troops arrive at Chang and city, evacuate the citizens outside the city gates as soon as possible. There must be no mistakes." Lu Ringue hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. This general obeys. Seeing that Li Zishuan had no other orders, Lu Ringue turned and left. Marquis, head steward Zhao is here. As soon as Lu Ringue left, a soldier walked in and cupped his fist to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan's eyes lit up. Quick, invite him in. Chapter 1606. Master, the Dragon Sect's army has arrived outside Chang'an City. The South City Gate is under martial law. The Marquis of Yong and is personally leading the left and right guards to resist the Dragon Sect's army. Chonghua Square, west of Chang'an City. An old servant came to the study and bowed to a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but clench his fists behind his back. After a short pause, he turned to look at the old servant and sighed. What will come will come. This day has finally come. The old servant hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask, Master, do you really plan to? Although he didn't finish his words, the middle-aged man knew what he wanted to express. Sigh, how could this old man not want to spend the rest of his life in peace? But the crown prince was a great benefactor to this old man. On the surface, we were monarch and subject, but in secret, we were best friends. This kindness is unforgettable even in death. In front of the Black Tortoise Gate, this old man had no power and could only watch as the crown prince was shot to death. Now that his descendants have sent people to find me, how can this old man stand by and watch? If this is really the case, how can this old man face the crown prince in the underworld after 100 years? After a long silence, the middle-aged man painfully closed his eyes and muttered to himself. When the old servant heard this, he couldn't help but fall silent. When he saw the middle-aged man raise his foot and intend to leave, he was still slightly unwilling and said, Master, what if the Dragon Sect's army is defeated, you take Madam and young master out of the city and escape? Without waiting for the old servant to finish, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said, With that, he didn't stay any longer. He went directly to the door and pushed it open. Master, you can't go out. The middle-aged man came out of the study and into the courtyard. Just as he was about to leave, a woman suddenly came out of the side courtyard and blocked his path. His Majesty ordered this old man to enter the palace to discuss matters. Madam, what are you doing? The middle-aged man's expression changed, but he quickly returned to normal. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, who knew that the woman wouldn't listen to a single word. She said anxiously, Master, don't try to deceive me. I heard everything you said to the Heavenly Dragon Sect's venerable. Master, normally, this concubine doesn't understand the important matters of those countries and doesn't dare to interrupt. But this time, this concubine has to advise Master. Master, King Shi is dead. No matter how good king she was to you back then, he's already dead. Do you really want to disregard the safety of our family for that groundless descendant of King Shi? Are you really willing to do that? The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect that the conversation between Du Yi and him would be overheard by his wife. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, Madam, you don't understand. Today this old man must go. Get out of the way. As for the price, if the Heavenly Dragon Sect is defeated, take him away from Chang'an. After saying that, he used his hand to push the woman away, intending to forcefully leave. Master, you can't go. He's still young. "Master, you can't do anything stupid." The woman didn't give up. She went forward and hugged the middle-aged man, crying. On the south gate tower of Chang and City. At this time, Li Zixuan had already arrived, and Zhao Song came with him. Now, the number of gurus left in Chang and City could be counted with one hand. Although Zhao Song had dropped a rank because of the compression of genuine qi last year, he was a veteran guru after all and quickly cultivated his realm back. This time, he accompanied Li Zixuan to guard the city. On the one hand, he helped Li Zixuan hold the line. On the other hand, he wanted to see with his own eyes which officials would come to the city to stir up trouble. Chapter 1607. On the city walls of Chang, the iron-masked man's words almost amused Li Zixuan. At this moment, Li Zixuan had every reason to suspect that the dragon head of the dragon sect had a screw loose in his head. He actually advised him, a marquis, to give up everything and join the dragon sect. Li Zixuan felt that even if he put aside loyalty and morality, even an idiot wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Why would I give up my free and unfettered life to become a rebel with you? You really think you're someone important? Huh? You're the dragon head of the dragon sect, right? You keep saying that His Majesty is cruel and merciless, provoking the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. But what this marquis sees is that since His Majesty ascended the throne, the people have been getting better and better food. Where's the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people? You're lying with your eyes wide open. If you're not trying to bewitch the people, what else can you be? Li Zixuan looked at the iron-masked man and mocked mercilessly. As the dragon head of the dragon sect, you don't even dare to show your true face. What qualifications do you have to make these tens of thousands of people work for you? At this point, Li Zixuan looked at the ordinary people standing in front of the dragon sect troops and said in a very sincere tone, "Fellow villagers, touch your conscience and tell me, since His Majesty ascended the throne, haven't your days been getting better and better? Now that the world is peaceful and His Majesty loves the people like His own children, what reason do you have to not cherish such a prosperous Tang dynasty instead of rebelling with this sneaky person? Even if the dragon sect can really invade Chang, and who can guarantee that this man who doesn't even have the courage to show his true face will be a wise ruler? Who can guarantee that he will be wiser than His Majesty? This marquis knows that most of you were bewitched by Du-E to join Heavenly Dragon sect, but this marquis can tell you with certainty that Du-E's reincarnation is a lie. His immortal arts are also a lie. As for the Jade Lake holy water that can cure all kinds of diseases and grant immortality after consuming it for a long time, it is also a lie. You want to pursue a high position in the Heavenly Dragon sect. No illness, no disaster, and even immortality. All of these are nothing but lies. All of you are just sacrificial pawns for this person to fight for the world. If you can repent in time and turn over a new leaf, it's still not too late. Shut up. Li Zixuan's provocation caused the Heavenly Dragon sect members to waver even more. The iron-masked man was completely enraged. 3 feet above your head, Marquis Yong, and you're distorting black and white, disrespecting the gods. Be careful not to suffer the wrath of the heavens. Also, my Heavenly Dragon sect's Jade Lake holy water can cure all diseases. This is obvious to all. Don't even think about smearing my Heavenly Dragon sect's name. Hearing this, many of the ordinary Heavenly Dragon sect members couldn't help nodding secretly, whispering to each other. Dragonhead is right. That day, I saw with my own eyes that Butcher Zhang from Stone Village, who often suffered from leg pain, immediately stopped hurting after drinking the Jasper Lake holy water. And Annie Zhang from Liujia Village, I heard that her waist immediately stopped hurting after drinking the Jade Lake holy water. Sigh. I joined the Heavenly Dragon sect to get a bowl of Jade Lake holy water so I can bring it back for my mother. Feeling that the scales of victory were tilting towards the Heavenly Dragon sect, the iron-masked man couldn't help but reveal a smug smile. But Li Zixuan on the city gate tower was not the least bit flustered. He calmly said, "Men, bring up the venerable Du-E of the Heavenly Dragon sect." Hearing this, the iron-masked man, Zhang Liang, and General Luo all paled. The rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect members who didn't know the inside story looked curiously at the city gate tower, muttering to themselves, "Why is Du, Yi, and Chang in city, and even captured by Li Zixuan?" Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Yi was escorted to the city wall by 2 imperial guards under the lead of Zhao Song, who was shackled with iron shackles. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people at the bottom of the city could vaguely see Du Yi's shiny forehead. The Iron-Masked Man and General Luo both had excellent eyesight. They quickly recognized that the monk on top of the city gate tower was indeed Du Yi. How is this possible? Is Du Yi really captured by the imperial court? As he gazed at Du Yi, who stood on the city wall, tempestuous waves arose in the Iron-Masked Man's heart. The plan that he'd once thought to be foolproof was now filled with flaws and had been destroyed by Li Zixuan. At this moment, the Iron-Masked Man suddenly felt that he'd fallen into the trap set up by Li Zixuan. "Dragonhead, what should we do?" General Luo couldn't help but whisper. The Iron-Masked Man was silent. Reason told him that now that the plan had failed, they should retreat in time. But he was very unwilling to return without success after so long of planning. Just as he was hesitating, Du Yi opened his mouth. Not only did he speak, but his voice was also very loud. It was so loud that it shook the heavens and the earth. This was because Li Zixuan had asked someone to give Du Yi a loudspeaker. It was the first-generation loudspeaker that Li Tai had developed in the attack and defense department half a month ago. This poor monk is the venerable Du Yi of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Everyone used to think that this poor monk knows magic and is the reincarnation of gods and Buddhas. In fact, those are all fake. Chapter 1608. What do I do? The Dragonhead of the Heavenly Dragon sect is very crafty. When he saw that the situation was bad, he immediately retreated with his army. Should I use this chance to capture him? But he also has that unknown General Luo at his side. What should I do? The rear army of the Heavenly Dragon sect had become the vanguard, and the vanguard had been sent to bring up the rear. The Dragonhead had personally led his army in retreat, and this made Li Junxian anxious. For some reason, he had wanted to seize the Dragonhead, but in the end, he hadn't put it into action. He didn't know how strong General Luo was, and he wasn't absolutely confident that he could capture the Dragonhead under his nose. Even though Li Junxian had been a member of the Celestial Dragon Army for a long time, he had never seen General Luo take action. The arrow that General Luo had fired at the city gate was clearly at the level of a Grandmaster. Thus, Li Junxian did not believe that he could quickly capture the Dragonhead of the Heavenly Dragon sect while under the protection of a Grandmaster. Bong bong bong. Just when the Heavenly Dragon Army was preparing to retreat, the thundering of hooves came from the southern part of Chang. Li Junxian was elated. After hiding in the Heavenly Dragon sect for so long, he was well aware of its strength. He was certain that these soldiers were not here to reinforce the Heavenly Dragon sect. If he eliminated this possibility, then there was only one possibility. This army was from the imperial court. Li Junxian was happy, but the Dragonhead, Zhang Liang, and General Luo couldn't bring themselves to be happy. Not good. It's the imperial court's cavalry. General Luo grimaced, and then he hastily said, "My lord, take a group of elite soldiers and retreat from the east. This general will lead the rest to stop the imperial court's cavalry for you." The imperial court's cavalry? How could this be? The Dragonhead blurted out in disbelief. This god has been keeping an eye on the movements of the imperial court at the gates of Chang in this entire time. No soldiers have left the city in the last 2 days. Where did these cavalry come from? It was precisely because there were no signs of the imperial court deploying troops recently that the Iron-Masked Man dared to bring 50,000 men to attack the city. If the imperial court's army had been mobilized frequently in the past 2 days, it meant that the imperial court was aware of the Dragon Sect's plan. The Iron-Masked Man would definitely cancel today's operation in advance and not come to Chang'an City. Perhaps the troops of the imperial court stationed in other provinces and counties have arrived. General Luo's face turned ugly as he said, "My lord, now is not the time to discuss these issues. The most important thing right now is for you to lead a group of people to break out from the east. Leave his place to me to cover your retreat." General Luo, this general is willing to escort the dragon head away. At some point, Li Junxian had walked over, clasped his fist, and bowed. Li Junxian had not been standing very far from General Luo, so he had heard most of their conversation. The iron-masked man had finally separated from General Luo, so how could he not seize this chance? Thus, without any hesitation, he stepped forward and volunteered. General Luo immediately turned to Li Junxian and frowned. "You, if I remember correctly, you have only joined the Heavenly Dragon Army for less than a month, right? How can you bear such a great responsibility?" Li Junxian hadn't expected this man, surnamed Luo, to remember a minor character of the Heavenly Dragon sect. His mind turning, he hastily replied. His mind raced, and he hastily said, "General Luo, although this subordinate has not been a member of the Dragon sect for long, this subordinate is absolutely loyal to the Dragon Head and the Dragon sect. Venerable Du, he was coerced by the imperial court into maliciously slandering the Dragon sect in public. Others might believe it, but this subordinate will not. This subordinate's loyalty to the Dragon sect and the Dragon Head has never changed. Now that the Dragon Head is in danger, this subordinate will do everything in my power to escort the Dragon Head safely out of Chang'an. General Luo, please be at ease." Good, good, good. Li Junxian, this god did not misjudge you." The Dragon Head looked at Li Junxian in praise. Li Junxian had been able to enter the Heavenly Dragon Army primarily because he had received the Dragon Head's favor. Now that the Heavenly Dragon sect was in danger, Li Junxian had remained unwavering in his loyalty. The steel-masked man naturally had nothing but praise for Li Junxian. Thus, he turned to General Luo and said, "General Luo, this god trusts in Li Junxian's loyalty. Rest assured and let Li Junxian lead a group of men to escort this god out. But, no buts. General Luo, you only need to delay the Imperial Court's army for a few moments, and then immediately join up with this god. No matter what, you must live." At this point, the current situation did not allow them to hesitate too much. The iron-masked man instantly made a decision, but before he left, he still looked at General Luo with a solemn expression and said, "Don't worry." "Okay." General Luo's eyes flashed with emotion, and then he solemnly returned the bow. "My lord, take care. This general will definitely return alive." After saying this, he bellowed, "Pan Feng, Zhao Ming, the two of you take 2,000 elites and accompany Li Junxian to escort the Dragon Head out of Chang'an. If anything goes wrong, I will chop off your heads." As soon as he finished speaking, two valiant generals immediately stepped forward, cupped their fists, and said, "Yes, sir." "Huh, a trifling Heavenly Dragon sect dares to run rampant in Chang'an? Today, this old Chung will teach you how to behave." At this moment, the sound of hooves approached from the south, followed by the loud laughter of Chang Yaojin. General Luo grimaced and sternly ordered his subordinates, "Hurry and escort the Dragon Head out." Yes. Immediately, the two groups of elite soldiers brought the Heavenly Dragon sect's Dragon Head and left towards the east. General Luo gripped his sword and loudly shouted, "Soldiers, hear my order. Follow this general to meet the enemy." Yes, the Sky Dragon Army was indeed a well-trained army. The moment General Luo gave the order, more than 10,000 people responded in unison. Then, they pulled out their swords and got into formation. Under General Luo's lead, they charged towards the 10,000 light cavalry led by Chang Yaojin, Qin Xiong, and Yuqi Jingda. "Huh, how dare you? Let this old Chung meet you." Cheng Yaojin saw that the rebel army's general actually took the initiative to meet them, and he couldn't help but shout excitedly. He held his lance and charged forward. 10,000 against 18,000. But this old man didn't seem to have the slightest awareness that he was outnumbered. It was as if he had the absolute advantage, and he charged forward without any regard for his life. Seeing this, Qin Xiong panicked, but it was clearly impossible to stop Cheng Yaojin at this time. He turned his head to Yuqi Jingde and urgently said, "Jingde, Heavenly Dragon Cult just sent out a group of people to the east. There's likely to be Heavenly Dragon Cult's Dragon Head there. You lead a group to pursue. I'll go help Jijia." At the end of the day, Qin Xiong was still a little worried about Cheng Yaojin. However, he could not send people to chase after the other group of people from Heavenly Dragon Sect. After thinking about it, he could only make this arrangement. Yu Qigong also knew that the situation was urgent. Without hesitation, he wiped the rain off his face and replied, "All right, then I'll lead 1,000 light cavalry to chase after the Heavenly Dragon Sect survivors. Shu Bao, you and Jijia must be careful. You don't have to worry about this side." Qin Xiong nodded. "Wu Dachuan, count 1,000 men and follow this general." With that, Yuqi Jingde called out to his men, and the 1,000 light cavalry immediately turned and galloped in the direction of the Heavenly Dragon Sect's Dragon Head. "All generals, listen to my order. Follow this general to kill. Don't let a single one escape." Qin Xiong held a golden mace and urged his horse to lead the remaining 1,000 light cavalry to support Cheng Yaojin. At this moment, Cheng Yaojin and General Luo were already fighting. The two of them tested each other's strength and found that they were evenly matched. At this time, Cheng Yaojin's lance smashed into General Luo's sword, but the latter's majestic Jinqi directly shook him away. Cheng Yaojin stabilized himself and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Hey, Junior, you have such good kung fu. Who are you? Who is your teacher?" It was no wonder that old Cheng was surprised. The young general in front of him was no more than 20 years old, but his martial arts had reached the Grandmaster realm. Other than Li Zishuan, this was probably the youngest Grandmaster realm martial artist in the entire Tang Dynasty. What surprised Cheng Yaojin even more was that not only was this young general's realm high, his swordsmanship was also quite fierce. Yes, fierce, bold, simple, and efficient. It had the style of the army's swordsmanship. "I'm just a nobody. There's no need for Duke Lu to worry about me." A trace of hatred flashed in General Luo's eyes. He said coldly and directly raised his sword to slash at Cheng Yaojin. "Hey, old Cheng, saw that you were a promising talent and wanted to persuade you to submit to the imperial court, but you really don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, old Cheng, will teach you how to respect your elders." When Cheng Yaojin saw that this young general's martial arts were outstanding, he was very fond of him. However, the other party did not appreciate his kindness at all. Cheng Yaojin could not help but be furious. Not everyone had the qualifications to be treated coldly by him. After saying that, Cheng Yaojin waved his lance and swung it at General Luo. "Jijia, this old man will help you." At this moment, Qin Xiong came over on his horse, wanting to join forces with Cheng Yaojin to fight against General Luo. Cheng Yaojin's stubborn temper had already risen. When he heard Qin Xiong's voice, he loudly said, "Second brother, I don't need your help. Let me, old Cheng, deal with him alone." As they spoke, the two of them had already clashed. Hearing this, Qin Xiong hurriedly reined in his horse, but he felt helpless. He knew that if he rashly joined the battle at this time, old Cheng wouldn't really be angry at him, but he would definitely feel very uncomfortable. So at this moment, he could only deal with the surrounding Dragon Sect soldiers while paying attention to the battle. If Cheng Yaojin's situation changed, he would be the first to go to his rescue. Chapter 1609. Cheng Yaojin and General Luo were fighting fiercely, but in front of them, Li Zishuan's Wu Wei army and the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon Sect disciples were fighting a one-sided battle. These 30,000 people were just ordinary people. They had not received any formal training after joining the Heavenly Dragon Sect. When they met the well-equipped and well-trained elite soldiers, the 30,000 people instantly showed signs of defeat. Of course, their lack of combat strength was one of the reasons. However, The more important reason was that after listening to Du, he exposed the Heavenly Dragon sect's deception and conspiracy. Most of the people no longer had any thoughts of resisting. When the two sides clashed, countless people dropped their weapons and directly knelt on the ground to surrender. The elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect, who were supervising the battle among the commoners, saw that there were people who dared to surrender without a fight. They went forward to teach them a lesson and wanted to make an example out of them. However, their actions aroused public anger. After all, there were only a few hundred of them. The 30,000 commoners turned around and attacked the elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Not long after, the Heavenly Dragon sect elites who were supervising the battle were all beaten to the ground. Some were dead, some were seriously injured, and there was not even a light injury. Those who abandon the dark and join the light will be punished lightly. Those who resist will be killed without mercy. The Heavenly Dragon sect elite's shouts could be heard everywhere on the battlefield. Under the deterrence of absolute force, the 30,000 disheartened Heavenly Dragon sect members dropped their weapons one by one and knelt on the ground to surrender. Soon, a large number of people on the battlefield were kneeling. Not far away, General Luo, who was fighting with Chang Yaojin, could not help but feel anxious when he saw this scene. However, it was useless to be anxious. Although Chang Yaojin's martial realm was on par with his, in terms of battle experience, Chang Yaojin was undoubtedly far ahead of him. At this time, there was no way for him to quickly end the battle, let alone leave. Therefore, he could only watch as Li Zishuan absorbed the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect members. Your Majesty, please slow down. Outside Chang and City, the three sides were fighting fiercely. Inside Chang and City, there was a group of people who happened to be near the city walls. The leader was Li Er. Behind him were all the civil and military officials of the imperial court. Earlier, when the Heavenly Dragon sect had surrounded Chang and City, the civil and military officials of Chang and City had all gone to the imperial palace to request Li Er, who was ill, to immediately convene the morning court. Naturally, the officials did not know that Li Er was deliberately pretending to be ill this time to make the old officials in Chang and City lower their guard and have time to secretly communicate with the rebel army outside Chang and City. After hearing the request of the officials to immediately convene the morning court, Li Er did not decline. After all, Chang and City was surrounded by the rebel army. If he hid in the harem, it would not be justifiable. After pretending to ask the officials about the current situation in Chang and City, he directly led the officials. He directly leading the officials directly. He led the officials directly to the south gate. Cities. Under the guidance of a eunuch and a city gate officer, Li Er and the officials of the imperial court ascended the city tower one by one. What they saw was the scene of 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect members kneeling and surrendering. Fang Xianling could not help but exclaim, "What's going on? I heard that the rebel army had aggressively surrounded Chang and City, but why are all the people of the Heavenly Dragon sect surrendering now?" It was not that Fang Xianling was making a fuss over nothing. The main thing was that when the Heavenly Dragon sect troops arrived at Chang and City, the people of Chang and City suddenly fell into extreme panic. Many people described the soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon sect as 3 heads and 6 arms, ferocious monsters. Moreover, the people of Chang and City worshipped the 50,000 rebels as 200,000 to 300,000. It was as if Chang and City could be breached by the rebel army at any time. Fang Xianling and the other core officials of the empire could not wait to bring the officials to the imperial palace for an audience after hearing the rumors in the city. However, when the group of people arrived at the city wall from afar, they discovered that the situation was completely different from what the commoners had described. Other than Chang Yaojin's battlefield being a little anxious, Li Zishuan's side was completely one-sided. How did this look like Chang and City was about to be breached? Instead, it looked more like the Heavenly Dragon sect was ambushed by the imperial court. Li Er sneered. The existence of the Heavenly Dragon sect was originally a scam. Now that the scam has been exposed, the deceived people are naturally unwilling to serve the Heavenly Dragon sect. The ones who are still stubbornly resisting are the troops that the Heavenly Dragon sect has cultivated over the years. They're called the Heavenly Dragon Army and followed the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect from Qingzhou. Your Majesty, please look, there are 2 more troops on the east side. The officials were naturally shocked by Li Er's ability to predict the future, but that did not include Li Jing. He was one of the few people who knew about the entire incident. At this moment, he saw 2 armies chasing and fighting on the eastern side of the fork, so he could not help but remind them. Li Er's gaze focused and shifted to the east side of Chang and city. At this time, the general who led Li Er to the city wall explained, Your Majesty, after the Marquis of Yong, and used the Heavenly Dragon sect's venerable Du Yi to expose all of the Heavenly Dragon sect schemes. The head of the Heavenly Dragon sect knew that there was no hope of attacking the city. When he saw Marquis open the city to fight, he directly led 2,000 people to the east, leaving the rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect's members and troops to cover the rear. When General Yuchi saw this, he directly led 1,000 light cavalry to chase after them. I see. Li Er nodded and ordered Duan Jishuan, I order you to immediately lead 1,000 black armored troops out of the city to support Yuchi Jingda. Remember, you must capture the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect alive. I want to see who he is. Duan Jishuan cupped his fists and accepted the order. This general obeys. With that, he hurriedly turned and ran down the city tower. A moment later, a heavily armored army rushed out of Chang and city and headed east. Wei Zhang's face was gloomy. In truth, he had already guessed the identity of the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. It was because of this that he was so depressed these days. Bring me the binoculars. Li Er ordered at this time. Yes. Not long after, a eunuch handed over a pair of binoculars. Li Er reached out and received it. He then placed it in front of his eyes and looked at Cheng Yaojin and another young general who were fighting outside the city. After watching for a while, Li Er put down the binoculars and said with a strange expression, that young general from the Heavenly Dragon sect has very good martial arts. He can actually fight Cheng Jijia to a standstill. This kind of person is definitely not a nobody. Auxiliary machine, come take a look. Li Er was not worried about the battle outside the city at all. Under normal circumstances, as long as there was no internal strife in Chang and city, it would be wishful thinking for the enemy to attack the city from the outside. The current Tang Dynasty was not the Tang Dynasty of the 9 years of Wuda. Not anyone had the qualifications to besiege the city and make Li Er sign the Wei River Alliance. After all the hidden dangers in Chang and city were discovered and eliminated, this was a battle where the disparity in strength was great. Compared to the outcome, Li Er was more concerned about the identity of the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect and its core members. This old subject obeys the decree. Zhang Sun Wuji's heart moved. He took the binoculars and looked at the battlefield in the south. With one look, he was shocked. How is this possible? How can it be him? Chapter 16:10. Big Brother Meng, I'm sorry. My name is not Li Junjian. I am a marshal of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. In the eastern part of Chang, and Li Junxian was holding the dragon head by the shoulder and holding his sword at his neck. Upon hearing Meng Wuchang's question, he turned around and apologetically said, I'm sorry. Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. Meng Wuchang was dumbfounded. The dragon head was also dumbfounded. The surrounding Celestial Dragon Army soldiers were also dumbfounded. None of them had imagined that the Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department would infiltrate the Celestial Dragon sect and become a member of the Earth Emanations Battalion. This was simply too absurd. Bastard, to think that this god valued you so highly. You're actually a spy sent by the Imperial Court. Someone, hurry and kill this brat. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect was so angry that he trembled all over and roared. Li Junxian's face chilled as he pressed his sword to the dragon head's neck and shouted, None of you are allowed to come over. If anyone dares to take a single step forward, your dragon head will die. The restless soldiers of the celestial dragon army calmed down once more. The soldiers of the imperial court that had been besieging the dragon head used this chance to surround Li Junxian and the dragon head. Yuchi Jingda looked over in delight. Oh, so it was Marshal Li? Why are you in the celestial dragon sect? Oh, this old man remembers now. You haven't appeared in Chang'an for quite some time. Presumably, His Majesty sent you to infiltrate the celestial dragon sect, right? Huh. His Majesty is truly wise. Otherwise, the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect might have escaped today. Kill. Hurry and kill Li Junxian. Li Junxian was just about to speak with Yuchi Jingda when the dragon head in his hand began to madly shout, "All generals, hear my order. Kill Li Junxian. Don't be threatened by him. We're now in the hands of the imperial court, and we're all dead. Hurry and kill Li Junxian." The dragon head finally understood. Since Lier had sent Li Junxian to infiltrate the celestial dragon sect as a spy, there was a high chance that Li Junxian had been the one who had leaked out the celestial dragon sect's plans. Otherwise, how could his flawless plans have been foiled by the imperial court? Hate. The dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect felt endless hatred for Li Junxian. If not for Li Junxian, Chang'an might have fallen into internal strife, and he might have led the celestial dragon army into Chang'an. Thus, the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect only wanted to kill Li Junxian. He couldn't care less about anything else. Everyone stop. Don't listen to his nonsense. Li Junxian took the dragon head and retreated a few steps until he was at a safe distance. He then turned to the less than 1,000 soldiers of the heavenly dragon army and Meng Wuchang. Big Brother Meng, and my brothers of the celestial dragon army, I, Li Junxian, know that the vast majority of you have received the grace of the dragon sect, so you are willing to die for your dragon head. But have you ever wondered if your dragon head harbored ill intentions when he granted you this grace? You all heard what Du Yi said on the walls. Not only does the dragon sect not have any reincarnated gods, the Jade Lake's sacred water you gave your family members is not a cure for all illnesses, as the rumors say. Drinking too much of the Jade Lake's sacred water will even cause one to become dependent on it and gradually eat away at one's body. The dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect clearly knew that the Jade Lake's sacred water could not cure all illnesses and was even harmful to the body. So why did he give it to you? This means that from the moment he granted you this grace, he wanted to use you. You were just pawns in his plot to usurp the throne. So why continue to resist? There are many ways to repay favors in this world, and this sort of favor is not worth your life. I've already captured the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect, and the rest of the heavenly dragon sect has been wiped out by the imperial court. Rather than serving this dragon head, it would be better for you to lay down your weapons and join the light. Perhaps His Majesty will spare you. Even if you don't think about yourselves, you should think about your families. They might still be waiting for you to return. Li Junxian's words caused these loyal soldiers of the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect to waver. The word family was perhaps the softest part of their hearts. Family? Meng Wuchang stood in a daze, his heart filled with bitterness. After a long while, he couldn't help but burst into tears. I, Meng Wuchang, have let down my fellow villagers and family. Now that I've become a rebel of the heavenly dragon sect, how can I face my elders and family? After saying this, he raised the Mo saber in his hand and slashed at his own neck. Big Brother Meng. Li Junxian panicked and wanted to go over and cut him, but he couldn't free himself, so he could only watch as Meng Wuchang killed himself. Clang! Just when the Mo saber was about to cut Meng Wuchang's neck, a lance howled through the air and struck the hilt of the saber in Meng Wuchang's right hand. With a metallic clang, the saber in Meng Wuchang's hand clattered to the ground. Chapter 16:11. Lu Wugong, stop. This person is... The Sky Dragon Legion's main general had committed suicide, and the rest of the soldiers had lost their leader. They were in a mess, but they were quickly subdued by the left and right guards, as well as the 10,000 elite cavalry that Qin Xiong had brought back. Just then, there was a hurried shout from outside the crowd. An official in purple rushed in, but before he could finish a sentence, he saw General Luo lying on the ground with his neck dyed red. His voice stopped abruptly. The person he was looking for was obviously dead. "This, Lu Guogong, you killed him?" The purple-robed official looked at General Luo on the ground, then looked at Cheng Yaojin and asked in disbelief, "Zhao Guogong, this has nothing to do with me." That's right, this purple-robed official was Zhang Sun Wuji. Previously, when Zhang Sun Wuji saw the appearance of this young general, he quickly excused himself from Lier and quickly ran down the city gate tower. Hearing the reproach in Zhang Sun Wuji's words, Cheng Yaojin rubbed his nose and quickly waved his hand. This old man originally wanted to capture him alive and hand him over to His Majesty to deal with him personally. However, this junior was bent on seeking death and ran into this old Cheng's lance. This old man was caught off guard, so this junior committed suicide. Sigh, what a pity. Although Cheng Yaojin was dissatisfied with the young general's arrogant attitude, he had to admit that this young general was a promising talent. He had reached the Grandmaster realm at such a young age. Although his future achievements couldn't be compared to Li Zishuan, he definitely wouldn't be too bad. It was indeed a pity for such a young talent to die, just like that. After a moment of frustration, Cheng Yaojin suddenly came back to his senses. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji and asked curiously, Zhao Guogong, why are you so concerned about this young man? Could it be that you know him?" At this moment, Cheng Yaojin realized that something was wrong. If the young general on the ground was really Zhang Sun Wuji's relative, then he had completely offended Zhang Sun Wuji. Although Cheng Yaojin wasn't afraid of Zhang Sun Wuji, being watched by an old fox every day was quite uncomfortable. "You," Zhang Sun Wuji pointed at Cheng Yaojin and sighed. "AI, wasn't this young General Luo Yi's son? Luo, Cheng? Forget it. Let's bring the Heavenly Dragon sect rebels back to the city first. We'll talk about this later." Luo Cheng. When Li Zishuan heard this, he couldn't help but feel shocked. In his previous life, he had read The Legend of the Heroes of Sui and Tang Dynasties a few times. Naturally, he knew about Luo Cheng. However, he didn't expect that such a young hero would become a rebel and end up like this. It seemed that because of his appearance, a lot of history had quietly changed. Actually, there was no such person as Luo Cheng in the official history. He only existed in novels. What? Is this kid Luo Yi's son? Cheng Yaojin's eyes widened in shock. But Zhang Sun Wuji had already turned and walked far away. He naturally wouldn't answer Cheng Yaojin's question. Qin Xiong, who was by the side, sighed and said, "Sigh. Last year, Luo Yi went astray and rebelled. I didn't expect that his son would end up like him. What a sin." When Wagong village was at its peak, Qin Xiong, Cheng Yaojin, and Luo Yi had all worked under Li Mi. Moreover, the three of them had a relatively good relationship. Now that Luo Yi's son had died under Cheng Yaojin's lance, Qin Xiong and Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but sigh. Let's go. Now that the Heavenly Dragon sect has been destroyed, it can be considered to have solved a problem for the imperial court. Let's return to the palace and report. After a moment of silence, Qin Xiong patted Cheng Yaojin's shoulder and said. Cheng Yaojin naturally didn't reject. He nodded and let people count the troops and prisoners. Then he followed Qin Xiong and Cheng Yaojin back to Chang and city. Creak, creak. Accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other, Chang and city's illustrious Virtue Gate was opened once again. Unlike the previous two times, it didn't close immediately after opening. The other city gates also opened. This meant that Chang and city, which had been sealed for more than a day, was now officially unsealed. The city gates are open. This time, there's no army coming out of the city, but the city gates are open. The Imperial Court's army has entered the city. They must have won a great battle. Could it be that the Heavenly Dragon sect has been destroyed? Ha! That's great. That's great. Chapter 1612. Kneel. Inside Taiji Palace, Yuqi Jingde and Duan Jishuan carried in a man wearing a metal mask. When they reached the front of the officials, Yuqi Jingde's face darkened as he shouted at the masked man, who was the dragon head of the dragon sect. Although under normal circumstances, kneeling was not popular in this era, the dragon head of the dragon sect, as the general of the defeated army, should kneel after seeing Lier. There was absolutely nothing wrong with this. Humph! How can a traitor who killed his brother and imprisoned his father be worthy of this seat kneeling? Don't even think about it. The masked man glared at Lier, his eyes flashing with a cold light as he stubbornly said. The moment these words came out, the faces of the officials changed. Ever since Lier ascended the throne, no official had ever dared to say such words. Even if someone was tired of living, they would not choose such a method to court death. But who would have thought that these words that even Wei Yanzi did not dare to say would actually come out of the mouth of a rebel army's leader today? The hall suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Lier narrowed his eyes as he stared fixedly at the dragon head of the dragon sect. There was no joy or anger on his face, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long while, he finally spoke. Humph! Are you deliberately provoking this seat? Seeking a quick death? The dragon head of the dragon sect trembled, but he neither admitted nor denied it. Lier's eyes narrowed as he ordered in a deep voice, Jingde, take off his mask. Let this seat and the officials see who he really is. Although Yuqi Jingde and Duan Jishuan had captured the dragon head of the dragon sect, no one dared to take off his mask. Both of them were old officials who had experienced the ups and downs of officialdom for many years. How could they not notice the abnormality behind the dragon sect's rebellion? Therefore, in their view, the identity of the dragon head of the dragon sect could only be revealed by Lier himself. On the other hand, not taking off the mask on the spot was to preserve the original appearance of the criminal to the greatest extent to avoid suspicion of being swapped. Yes, Your Majesty. Yuqi Jingde cupped his fists and accepted the order. He then turned around and looked at the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect, preparing to remove the iron mask on his face. At this moment, the latter began to struggle violently. Li Shimin, the winner is king, while the loser is a bandit. If you want to kill me or cut me up, do as you please. You humiliated me like this. What kind of hero are you? Hearing the heavenly dragon sect's dragon head's words becoming more and more excessive, Yuqi Jingde hurriedly sped up, reaching out with lightning speed to pull off the latter's iron mask. Instantly, an excessively young and handsome face was exposed before everyone's eyes. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock, because no one had expected that the person behind all this rebellion would be so young. Judging from his appearance, he was at most 14 or 15 years old, right? He was even younger than the youngest person in the imperial court, Li Zishuan. Who are you? Where are you from? Lier frowned and stared unblinkingly at the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect. This person's appearance gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't put his finger on it for a moment. A moment later, he asked in a low voice. The dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect said angrily, This seat said that if you want to kill me, then kill me. If you want to cut me up, then cut me up. When did the decisive Li Shimin become as wishy-washy as a woman? Despite being described as a woman, Lier didn't show any anger on his face. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned to Wei Zheng. Wei Zuocheng, tell me, who is this dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect? Whoosh! As soon as Lier's words fell, all the officials in Taiji Palace, whether intentionally or not, turned their gazes to Wei Zheng. After all, almost everyone present was a wily old fox who had experienced ups and downs for many years. For Lier to personally call out Wei Zheng in this situation, the meaning behind it was self-evident. As the person involved, Wei Zheng couldn't help but tremble when he heard Lier call out his name. At this moment, his face was full of contradiction and regret. Under Lier's aggressive gaze, Wei Zheng finally stepped forward and bowed. Your Majesty, this old subject doesn't know the identity of the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect, but since he has the King Aura token, he must have a lot to do with the King Aura. Boom! What? The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect is actually related to the King Aura? King Aura token? How did Wei Xuanqing know that the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect has the King Aura token? As soon as the two words King Aura came out, the Taiji Palace exploded. After all, only a few of them had secretly contacted Dewey before. Most people didn't know that the Heavenly Dragon sect had set up so many schemes in Chang and City, let alone that Dewey was a civil and military official of Li Jianqing's faction in Chang and City with the King Aura token. When the officials' discussion gradually died down, Li Er narrowed his eyes and asked indifferently, "Minister Wei, how did you know that the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect has the King Aura token?" The atmosphere in the court suddenly froze. Wei Zheng paused for a moment, bowed deeply, and said, "Your Majesty, this old subject is guilty." "Oh, what crime is Minister Wei guilty of?" Li Er asked knowingly. Wei Zheng closed his eyes and said with a pained expression, "Your Majesty, the Venerable of the Heavenly Dragon sect had a secret meeting with this old man a few days ago with the King Aura token and asked this old man to make things convenient for the Heavenly Dragon sect in Chang and City. Although this old subject flatly refused, I didn't report this matter to Your Majesty and almost caused Chang and City to suffer a disaster. This old subject is guilty, and I beg for death." After saying that, a turbid tear fell from the corner of Wei Zheng's eye. Back then, he was one of Li Jianqing's top strategists. He had a very deep relationship with Li Jianqing. When He came to him with the King Aura token, he also hesitated. However, reason told him that the King Aura was already dead, and the Heavenly Dragon sect was just using the King Aura's name to stir up trouble in Chang and attract more believers. Therefore, Wei Zheng mercilessly refused Du's request. But Wei Zheng also didn't choose to report this matter to Li Er. First, he felt that there was no need. He didn't believe that the Heavenly Dragon sect could pose a threat to the powerful imperial court. Second, he guessed that the person behind the Heavenly Dragon sect was related to Li Jianqing. Whenever possible, one should be lenient. Letting the Heavenly Dragon sect go could be considered repaying Li Jianqing's favor. Today, the Heavenly Dragon sect had taken the initiative to besiege Chang. Only now did Wei Zheng understand that his moment of soft-heartedness had led to a grave mistake and almost brought immeasurable losses to the great Tang. He, who had been upright all his life, had finally avenged himself with great difficulty, but it had resulted in such tragic consequences. At this moment, Wei Zheng felt that only death could atone for his sins. Li Er stared at Wei Zheng, his brow furrowed. He didn't say that he would punish Wei Zheng, but he also didn't say that he would let him go. Seeing this, the officials couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Because the more Li Er remained silent, the more likely Wei Zheng would be to die. Although Wei Zheng often liked to criticize the heavens, earth, and air, and almost everyone in the court was annoyed by him, but the officials in the hall asked themselves honestly. Wei Zheng had contributed a lot to the Great Tang. At the very least, when Li Er, as the emperor, did something inappropriate, Wei Zheng would replace them to criticize Li Er and regulate Li Er's behavior. If Wei Zheng wasn't there, then the next time Li Er did something foolish, these virtuous officials would have to reprimand and face Li Er's anger. Now that they saw that Wei Zheng might lose his life, the officials in the hall couldn't help but feel a trace of sympathy for the death of the rabbit. "Your Majesty," just as the atmosphere in the hall became more and more oppressive, Li Zishuan finally stood up. He bowed towards Li Er and said, "Your Majesty, although Left Minister Wei is guilty, his crime definitely does not warrant death. If he knew in advance that the dragon sect would attack the city today, this official believes that he would have told Your Majesty about the Deuce secret meeting no matter what. With bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. Left Minister Wei is upright and plain-spoken. He is loyal to the great Tang and is sincere to your majesty. He always dares to reprimand. Such a virtuous official is not only a role model for all the officials in the court, but also a mirror for your majesty. If your majesty kills Left Minister Wei today, it will be the same as destroying a mirror. In the future, it will be difficult to meet a mirror that can protect you. Your majesty, please reconsider. Wei Zheng, who was already prepared to die, was surprised to see Li Zixuan pleading for him. But after listening to Li Zixuan's words, his face was filled with complex emotions. Li Er, who was sitting at the head of the table, couldn't help but recall Li Zixuan's words in his mind. With bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. This sentence was inexplicably familiar to Li Er, but after thinking about it, he couldn't think of a reason and could only give up in the end. Isn't this nonsense? This sentence was said by him. Of course he was familiar with it. According to the historical records, in the 17th year of Jingguan, Wei Zheng died of illness. Li Er couldn't help but cry bitterly and said to the people around him, "If a man uses bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. I have always protected these three mirrors to prevent myself from going overboard. Today, Wei Zheng has died, thus one mirror is gone. Humph, Wei Wucheng, I'll put aside the matter of you concealing it for now. I'll deal with you later." In the end, Li Er let Wei Zheng go, although he didn't say it out loud. Wei Zheng was touched and said, "Thank you, your majesty, for not killing me." Li Er snorted and then looked at another person in the hall. "Wei Ting, do you know the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" As soon as he finished speaking, an old and decrepit official stepped forward. Taking a closer look at his appearance, it was the old man who was about to open the city gates for the Heavenly Dragon sect. But in the end, he stopped at the precipice. Walking to the front of the officials, Wei Ting cupped his hands and said with a pained expression, "Your Majesty, this old minister also knows the crime of not reporting it. Please punish me." Li Er said indifferently, "First, tell me the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. As for your crime of not reporting it, we'll deal with it later." Chapter 16:13. In the Taiji Palace. The officials were still in shock from Li Chengzong smashing his head against the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Er call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their gazes on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Chengzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was in a state of extreme shock at this moment. Hearing Li Er call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped her hands, replying to your majesty. This old subject had indeed guessed that the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, it's impossible for it to wander among the common people for no reason other than King Shi's direct bloodline. But I didn't guess that the dragon head was Li Chengzong, let alone how he came back to life. I'm afraid I can only ask Princess Shi about this. Wei Ting was born in the Xiaoyao branch of the Wei family. She had a good relationship with the hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng when she was young. Emperor Gao pacified the capital and appointed Li Jiansheng as the chancellor of the Longxi Duke residence. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wangan incident, Shi, Du Yin, and Wang He were exiled to Feng province. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that she wasn't lying, he said, "Min, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately went to carry out the order. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jiansheng. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jiansheng was made the crown prince, and Zheng Guanyin became the crown princess. Zheng Guanyin was in her youth and was extremely noble. She was close to the position of the empress. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jiansheng and his sons. In one day, Zheng Guanyin suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. Zheng Guanyin was only 28 years old, and the oldest son was only 11 years old. After Li Jiansheng's death, Madame Zheng spent her days mourning her late husband and raising her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jiansheng's former wife, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zheng Guanyin walked to the front of the officials and bowed. She sat expressionlessly. Even though she hated the man in front of her, she knew that she couldn't do anything to him because he was the supreme being of the world. When she heard that Li Erchuan had come to the Taiji Palace, she was a little puzzled at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar on the right. Within Taiji Palace, the officials were still in shock when Li Chengzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Chengzong die in front of her, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, this old official did guess that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, it can't be in the hands of the people for no reason except for the direct bloodline of King Shi. However, this old official never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Chengzong, let alone how he came back to life. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi." Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei family. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jiansheng of Longxi Manor as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of Yang Wengan, Du Yin, and Wang he were exiled to Feng province. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Erchuan looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that the other party wasn't lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A young eunuch immediately accepted the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jiansheng. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jiansheng was made the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was close to the position of the empress. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jiansheng and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. Her oldest son should be no more than 11 years old. After Li Jiansheng's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jiansheng's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zheng Guanyin walked in front of the officials and bowed. She was expressionless. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she couldn't do anything to him because he was the sovereign of the world. When she heard that Li Erchuan had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little confused at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in front of her right. The officials were still in shock when Li Chengzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Chengzong die in front of her, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it can't be lost among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Chengzong, let alone how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi. Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei clan. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jiansheng of Longxi Manor as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of a Yang Wangan incident, Du Yin and Wang He were exiled to Peng Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Erchuan looked at Wei Ting steadily. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Min, summon Zheng Guanyin." Yes. A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jiansheng. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jiansheng was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the empress. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jiansheng and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old, and the oldest of her sons should be no more than 11 years old. After Li Jiansheng's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jiansheng's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Walking in front of the officials, Zheng Guanyin bowed and said expressionlessly. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she could not do anything to him because he was the supreme ruler of the world. This time, when she heard that Li Erchuan had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little confused at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in front of her right. The officials were still in shock when Li Chengzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Chengzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had indeed guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because of how noble King Shi's token is, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it is impossible for it to wander among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Chengzong, let alone how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi. Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the capital's Wei clan. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jiansheng of Longxigong Fu as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wangan incident, he, Du Yin, and Wang He were exiled to Peng Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the head of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting calmly. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married the son of Duke Tang, Li Jiansheng. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jiansheng was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the mother of the world. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, trouble would arise? Qin King Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jiansheng and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. Out of all the sons of Madame Zheng, the oldest one was only 11 years old. After Li Jiansheng's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised the children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jiansheng's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Walking in front of the officials, Zheng Guanyin bowed and said expressionlessly. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she could not do anything to him. That was because the other party was the sovereign of the world. When she heard that Li Er had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little puzzled at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in the Taiji Palace. The officials were still in shock when Li Chengzong crashed his head into the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Er call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Chengzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Er call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. "Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had indeed guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it would not be lost among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Chengzong, let alone know how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi." Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei family. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jiansheng of Longxigong Fu as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jiansheng was greatly favored. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wangan incident, he, Du Yin, and Wang He were exiled to Peng Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jiansheng. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jiansheng was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the empress. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin King Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jiansheng and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. The oldest of her sons was no more than 11 years old. After Li Jianshang died, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and took care of her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the palace. Therefore, not long after, the small eunuch brought a woman. Not long after, the small eunuch brought a woman with a face full of vicissitudes, but her facial features were especially good. Chapter 16:14. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. Inside Taiji Palace, after hearing that Lier was finally willing to let the dead Li Chengzong go, Zheng Guanyin hurriedly got up from the ground and knelt down in front of Lier, kowtowing repeatedly to express her gratitude. Although Li Chengzong was not personally killed by Lier, no matter what, Li Chengzong's death was related to Lier. Now, Zheng Guanyin was kowtowing to the enemy who killed her husband and son. This scene was as ironic as it could be, but reality was so cruel. Today, if not for Li Zishuan pleading for her and her son, if not for Li Er's sudden benevolence, even if Li Chengzong died, he would have been buried in the belly of a dog. Now that she could protect Li Chengzong's body, Zheng Guanyin was already satisfied. She did not dare to have any other wishful thinking. All right, you may leave. Li Er's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Zheng Guanyin and waved his hand. In any case, he was the emperor of a country and did not want to continue making things difficult for a woman. Not to mention this woman was his sister-in-law. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zheng Guanyin kowtowed heavily again and stood up. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she suddenly paused. After hesitating for a moment, she turned to Li Er and said, "Regarding Chengzong's matter, if Your Majesty wishes to know, I am willing to tell you the truth." Returning the favor, after Li Er compromised, Zheng Guanyin also tactfully gave in. Of course, even if she did not say these things, Li Er could still find out if he wanted to. Hearing this, Li Er narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "All right, say it." Initially, after knowing that the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect was Li Chengzong, Li Er was indeed very curious and wanted to know how Li Chengzong, who had been dead for 8 years, could come back to life. However, after Zheng Guanyin's crying in Taiji Palace, his curiosity was not as strong as before. But since Zheng Guanyin was willing to tell the truth, Li Er felt that there was no harm in listening. Zheng Guanyin pondered for a moment and then said slowly, "In the 3rd year and 6th month of Wuda, Chengzong was conferred the title of Taiyuan County Prince by the retired emperor. However, in the same year, Chengzong contracted a strange illness. Not only did he suffer from chest tightness and wheezing, but his eyes were also dull. His Highness, Jianshang, invited famous doctors to treat Chengzong on the surface, but he also sent people to search for Jianghu sorcerers. By chance, at that time, Long Shi Gongfu's Chancellor Wei knew that we were looking for a Jianghu practitioner, so he recommended a Taoist named Yuan Tiangang to Qinxia and Jiansheng. At that time, Chancellor Wei said that this Yuan Tiangang was not only proficient in metaphysics and physiognomy, he could predict the future and was also proficient in Taoist medical skills. Perhaps he could save Chengzong. Yuan Tiangang. Hearing this, Li Zishuan couldn't help but exclaim. Zheng Guanyin was grateful that Li Zishuan had pleaded for mercy for the dead Li Chengzong, so she was not angry when Li Zishuan interrupted her. Instead, she nodded and explained, "That's right. That Taoist was called Yuan Tiangang. According to Chancellor Wei, at the end of the previous dynasty, when Yuan Tiangang first arrived in Luoyang, he settled down in Qinghua Square. At that time, his physiognomy predictions were already famous, and many people had secretly looked for him. One day, Du Yin, Wang Gui, and Chancellor Wei came to see Yuan Tiangang and asked him to read their fortune. Yuan Tiangang predicted that Du Yin would become famous throughout the world with his writings, that Wang Gui would become a 5th-rank general in less than 10 years, and that Wei Ting would become a military official with a face like a tiger. He also predicted that the three of them would be demoted after becoming officials, and that they would meet again at that time. Sure enough, in the first year of Wuda, Du Yin became a heavenly book scholar as an imperial censor. Wang Gui was recommended by Jiansheng to become a fifth-rank crown prince, and Wei Ting became the left guard commander. All of Yuan Tiangong's predictions came true one by one. So Chancellor Wei recommended Yuan Tiangang to Qinxia and Jiansheng. Oh, this Yuan Tiangang can really predict the future? Then what did he say to you? Li Er narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but become interested in this Yuan Tiangang whom he had never met before. Perhaps many people would find it unbelievable. Wasn't Li Chunfeng Yuan Tiangong's disciple? Why was Li Chunfeng doing better than Yuan Tiangang at this time? In fact, it was pure nonsense to say that Yuan Tiangang was Li Chunfeng's master. Li Chunfeng was interested in Taoism because of his father. Li Bo used to be a small official in the county government during the Sui Dynasty. He was not successful because of his low rank, so he gave up his official position and became a Taoist priest. He was quite knowledgeable and called himself Huang Guanzi. He wrote Laozi, 10 volumes of local chronicles, and prose on astronomical elephants. Li Chunfeng, who was known as a prodigy since childhood, read a lot under the influence of his father. He was especially fond of astronomy, geography, Taoism, and the study of yin and yang. In the second year of Wuda, Li Chunfeng, who was 17 years old, returned to his hometown. He was recommended by Li Shimon's good friend, Lu Wenjing, to become a secretary in the army. From then on, Li Chunfeng began his official career. What about Yuan Tiangang? According to historical records, in the 6th year of Jingguan, Li Er called back Du Yin, Wang Gui, and Wei Ting, who were exiled because of Crown Prince Li Jianqing. He learned from them that Yuan Tiangang was an unprecedented genius in Shu's divination, so he issued an edict to invite Yuan Tiangang to Chang'an. In other words, Yuan Tiangang began to enter the imperial court in the 6th year of Jingguan, which was more than 10 years later than Li Chunfeng. At this time, in the hall, Zheng Guanyin answered truthfully. After Yuan Tiangang saw Qingzong, he said that my son's illness was easy to cure, but after the disease was cured, he would encounter a man-made disaster, and his life would be short. The only way to cure it was to let Qingzong fake his death, and then secretly send him overseas to cultivate Taoism and avoid disaster. He was never allowed to step into the Central Plains, or there would be a bloody disaster. At that time, Qinxia and Jiansheng didn't believe Yuan Tiangong's words. However, Yuan Tiangong's prophecies about Du Yin, Wang Gui, and Chancellor Wei still rang in our ears. In addition, even the palace's imperial physicians were helpless against Qingzong's illness. Yet Yuan Tiangang could easily cure Qingzong. We didn't dare to doubt his words. After thinking about it again and again, we decided to secretly send Qingzong to Qingzhou, as Yuan Tiangang said, and let Qingzong go out to sea in Qingzhou. We also ordered the guards who took care of him to never let him return to the Central Plains. But who would have thought that man's plans were not as good as God's? Qingzong finally. In the end, Zheng Guanyin couldn't help crying in a low voice again. Hearing this, the officials in the hall couldn't help but be shocked. No one would have thought that Li Jianqing's eldest son didn't really die of illness, but came back to life by faking his death and was sent overseas to avoid disaster. Thinking of the change in the Xuanwu Gate 2 years ago, it seemed that Yuan Tiangong's prophecy about Li Qingzong was not false at all. If Li Jianqing and Zheng Guanyin hadn't sent Li Qingzong overseas, Li Qingzong would definitely have been like Li Chengqian's other 5 sons, dying under Li Er's sword in the 9th year of Wuda. Li Er's heart was also in turmoil. He wasn't surprised by the plan that Li Jiansheng had arranged for Li Qingzong to fake his death. He was shocked by Yuan Tiangong's ability to predict good and bad luck. Think about it. If Yuan Tiangang had read Li Jiansheng's fortune, would he have seen that Li Jiansheng would suffer a bloody disaster in the 9th year of Wuda? If so, would the mutiny he started in the 9th year of Wuda still succeed? Fortune tellers could predict good and bad luck, but they couldn't change history. But if fortune tellers changed the fate of some key people, Wouldn't that be the same as changing history? Thinking of this, at the same time that Li Er was shocked, he also felt a trace of lingering fear. At the same time, he also felt a trace of vigilance toward a Jianghu fortune-teller like Yuan Tiangang, who could predict good and bad luck in the future. He thought to himself that if such a person couldn't be used by him, it would be best to kill him. So that's how it is. I already know about this matter. You can leave. Although Li Qingzong had committed a heinous crime, he was also a member of the royal family anyway. I will let the Imperial Order Temple bury him as a prince. After a moment of silence, Li Er waved his hand and said to Zheng Guanyin, things had developed to this point. Li Er was no longer concerned about Li Qingzong's affairs. On the contrary, he remembered the name Yuan Tiangang. After this matter, Li Er would definitely send someone to find Yuan Tiangang. Your Majesty, thank you for your kindness. The dead were dead, and the arm couldn't resist the thigh. For Zheng Guanyin, who had lost her husband and all her sons, not only did she not have the ability to take revenge, but she also didn't dare to have any unusual movements. It wasn't that she was afraid of death, but there were still people she cared about in this world. Her 5 daughters. She wanted to raise all her 5 daughters and see them get married before she could leave with peace of mind. She couldn't bear to let her daughters lose their father and then their mother. After Zheng Guanyin expressed her gratitude, she got up and slowly left Taiji Palace. At this time, Li Er recovered from the matter of Li Qingzong. His tiger-like eyes focused, and he said in a deep voice, although Li Qingzong was the mastermind of this rebellion, there were many accomplices. As far as I know, from the 4th-rank officials in the imperial court, the 3rd-rank eunuchs in the imperial palace, the guards at the city gates, and the merchants, they more or less facilitated the dragon sect's attack on Chang'an City. This morning, when the dragon sect besieged the city, there were 18 courtiers who tried to lead their servants to open the city gates or create chaos in the city. There were also 24 guards who tried to bewitch the rest of the soldiers into a mutiny. Unfortunately, I didn't let these people get what they wanted. Before they started the rebellion, they were all captured by the cavalry and the soldiers of the left and right guards. They are now all locked up in the Supreme Court's death row prison. Humph! I have said before, meritorious deeds should be rewarded and wrongdoings should be punished. These people colluded with the rebels and tried to subvert the country. They are guilty of the most heinous crimes. Kill them all. None. Amnesty. Zhao Song, read out the list of criminals to the officials. It was said that being in the king's company was like being in the company of a tiger. Just a moment ago, Li Er was like a sharp sword with a restrained edge. At this moment, this sharp sword's edge was exposed. The sword's edge was pointed directly at the officials and generals who had provided assistance to the rebels in this rebellion. The imperial court fell into a dead silence. Only now did the officials know why there were so many empty seats in the imperial court today. It turned out that those people were all sent to the death row prison by Li Er. Logically speaking, in a time of prosperity, a prison was absolutely not advisable, especially when so many courtiers were arrested at once. It was bound to cause a great commotion. Usually, when faced with such a situation, the officials would try their best to persuade the emperor to think twice before acting. But this time, no one stood up to dissuade the emperor because this matter involved the emperor and rebellion. Moreover, from what Li Er said, those arrested officials were all caught red-handed. There was no room for quibbling and escape punishment. There was only the death penalty. Yes, sir. Zhao Song bowed and accepted the order. Then, he turned around and took out a roll of silk from his sleeve. He read out loud. After investigation, the Imperial Ancestral Temple Supervisor in Dijon, the Yellow Door Assistant Minister Shan Wenhua, the Imperial Magistrate Junior Overseer Hong Shang, the Imperial Censor Assistant Minister Qiu Jiaming, the Imperial Censor Xian Mu. Every time Zhao Song read out a name, the hearts of the officials could not help but tremble. After reading out more than 40 names, it finally came to an end. Before the officials could even breathe a sigh of relief, Zhao Song's next sentence made their hearts sink. The above officials and generals when the rebels besieged the city, instigated the people in the city, created chaos, and attempted to open the city gates for the rebels. They did not care about the safety of the country and the people. Their crimes are not punishable by death. Tomorrow at noon, they will all be beheaded in public at the entrance of the Western Market by the emperor. More than 40 officials and generals were all killed by Li Er in one go. This was probably the bloodiest purge of the officials in the Tang Dynasty since the Xuanwu Gate incident. Your Majesty is wise. After a moment of silence, the officials cupped their hands and said in unison, under such circumstances, no one was willing to stand up and plead for mercy for those traitors. Even Feng Xianling, a good old man in the imperial court, did not raise any objections, because those officials who colluded with the dragon sect and intended to rebel against the imperial court could not be absolved. Li Er nodded and turned his gaze to Wei Zheng and Wei Ting. After a moment of silence, he said, Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, Wang Ye, although the three of you did not participate in the rebellion of the dragon sect, you were suspected of knowing something but did not report it. Seeing that you have devoted yourself wholeheartedly to the country and the people, and have contributed a lot, I can spare you from death, but you cannot escape punishment. Therefore, I sentence each of you to receive 10 strokes of the cane, a demotion of 1 rank, a month of seclusion, and 3 years of salary forfeiture. Are the three of you sincerely convinced? According to Li Er's original intention, the lightest punishment for Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Bei, who knew about the possible relationship between the dragon sect and King Shi, was to be stripped of their official positions. After all, this time when the dragon sect attacked Chang and City, if it wasn't for Li Zishuan who coincidentally solved the crisis, Chang and City would be in big trouble. At that time, the losses of the imperial court would be incalculable. But at the end of the day, it was still Li Zishuan's pleading that had been effective. Since Li Er wanted to be the sage monarch of his generation, he needed virtuous ministers like Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui. Therefore, after careful consideration, Li Er chose to give Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui a lighter punishment. Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui stepped forward and bowed in shame. We are sincerely convinced. Thank your Majesty for your mercy. Although 10 strokes of the cane and a demotion of 1 rank was a more serious punishment, compared to the mistakes they had made, it was considered light. Therefore, the three of them were grateful to Li Er. However, after Wei Zheng shed tears of gratitude, he began to feel bitter in his heart. 3 years of no salary. How was he going to live? In the future, not to mention drinking wine, he was afraid that he would not even be able to eat at home. Chapter 16:15. This time, the dragon sect secretly used the name of King Shi to win over many officials and generals, nearly causing a huge crisis in Chang and City. Some people are loyal to the dragon sect, but others are loyal to the imperial court. Those who should be punished have been punished. Next, this emperor will reward them according to their merits. Imperial Palace, Taiji Palace. Li Er used an iron-blooded method to deal with the criminals involved in the Heavenly Dragon Sect case. Those who deserved to be killed were killed, and those who deserved to be punished were punished. Li Er swept a dignified gaze over all the officials present, and then said in a deep voice. Everyone's heart trembled as their gazes focused on Li Zishuan. Even the most ill-informed officials knew that Li Zishuan had contributed greatly in this war. When Li Er led the officials to the city gates, Li Zishuan was leading the guard army to recruit the 30,000 members of the dragon sect. If one were to say that Li Zishuan did not contribute to this war, even a ghost would not believe it. Of course, in the hearts of insiders like Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Li Jing, and Lu Fenghe, Li Zishuan was without a doubt the #1 hero in this rebellion. No one could refute this point. Sure enough, Li Er turned his gaze to Li Zishuan and said in a clear voice, Marquis Yong'an, come forward and receive your conferment. Li Zishuan stepped forward and cupped his hands. Your subject is here. Li Er looked at the dignified Li Zishuan, who was neither servile nor overbearing, and nodded with satisfaction. Then he looked at the officials and said, "In this rebellion of the dragon sect, the Marquis of Yangon first saw through the dragon sect's plot of using thunder and lightning to bombard the imperial ancestral temple, and found in Dezhong the dragon sect spy hiding in the imperial palace. This completely destroyed the dragon sect's fantasy of causing chaos in Chang'an. Then Marquis Yong and captured the dragon sect's venerable Sakya Du, who was hiding in Chang'an City. From Sakya Du's mouth, Marquis Yong unlearned of the dragon sect's plan to attack Chang'an City. Under his meticulous planning, not only did the imperial court completely destroy the dragon sect, they also caught many of their spies in Chang'an City. It can be said that if it wasn't for Marquis Yong and the imperial ancestral temple would have been destroyed by the lightning and fire. Even if the imperial court could resist the dragon sect's attack, they would have lost their dignity. This emperor has said before, meritorious service should be rewarded and wrongdoings should be punished. Marquis Yong and Marquis Yinhui General in Qingzhou land, 3,000 households, and the provincial governor of Qingzhou City. He will be in charge of the 7 counties of Qingzhou City's military and political affairs. The original governor of Qing province, Zheng Qingsong, allowed the heavenly dragon sect to grow stronger without doing anything. What do my beloved officials? Shock. The moment Li Er's words fell, not only were all the officials shocked, even Li Zishuan was shocked. Previously, he had the empty title of junior guardian of the crown prince. Now, Li Er gave him the title of Yinhui General. Could this be considered as proof that he was proficient in both the pen and the sword? Of course, what shocked Li Zishuan even more was that old Li actually bestowed the entire Qingzhou to him, and even gave him the title of provincial governor of Qingzhou City. He would be in charge of the 7 counties' military and political affairs. What was this? This was basically equivalent to being a governor of the border. This kind of treatment could only be enjoyed by a prince. Even old generals like Cheng Yaojin and Qin Xiong couldn't compare to it. For example, Cheng Yaojin, other than the title of Lu Guogong and the position of the right Wuwei general, he also received the position of provincial governor of Luzhou City. However, the entire Luzhou City wasn't Cheng Yaojin's fief. For someone like Li Zishuan, who directly received the title of provincial governor of Luzhou City, it was definitely far beyond the status of a marquis. The main reason was that Li Zishuan had made too many contributions, and Li Er had deliberately suppressed Li Zishuan's title, not wanting him to rise too quickly. At this moment, the civil and military officials in the main hall looked at each other. On the one hand, they were shocked that there were so many hidden dangers in the seemingly peaceful Chang and over the past 2 days. If the imperial court was careless, it would be in danger of being breached. On the other hand, they were shocked by Li Er's reward for Li Zishuan, not to mention the establishment of the Tang Empire. Even since the establishment of the position of provincial governor in the Qin Dynasty, there had never been a provincial governor as young as Li Zishuan. Of course, the princes of the previous dynasties were an exception. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and has indeed contributed greatly to the rebellion of the Heavenly Dragon sect. However, the Marquis of Yong is still young. Wouldn't the military affairs of a province be too heavy for him? The hall was silent for a moment. Then Fong Xinling stepped forward and cupped his hands. Of course, old Fong didn't have a problem with Li Zishuan and didn't want to see Li Zishuan promoted. On the contrary, old Fong admired Li Zishuan, who was capable and not arrogant. He stood up to stop Li Er's reward just to protect Li Zishuan. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. In Fong Xuanling's view, Li Zishuan was still too young, and climbing too high was not a good thing. Your Majesty, Prime Minister Fong is right. Marquis Yong, and has indeed made great contributions, but Your Majesty, please reconsider the matter of promoting him to provincial governor of Qingzhou. Li Jing hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and cupped his hands. His thoughts were actually the same as Fong Xuanling's. Li Zishuan was still too young, and too high of an official position will be detrimental to his future growth. Li Er's eyes flashed as he looked at the two officials who had stepped forward. After a moment of silence, he firmly said, "My two beloved officials' concerns are reasonable, but we have our own considerations. Marquis Yong, and is the most suitable candidate for the position of provincial governor of Qingzhou. My decision has been made. My beloved officials need not persuade me anymore. Marquis Yong, and why don't you step forward to receive the decree?" Li Er really had his own considerations for handing Qingzhou over to Li Zishuan. First, Qingzhou was the origin of the Dragon Sect, and also the headquarters behind the Dragon Sect. This time, the Dragon Head, Venerable, and Sky Dragon Army's generals were all captured, either dead or captured. Although the core members of the Dragon Sect were captured, there were still countless remnants of the sect among the people. As Qingzhou was the origin of the Dragon Sect, this situation would be even more serious. Placing Li Zishuan in the position of provincial governor of Qingzhou would more or less serve as a powerful deterrent to the remnants of the Dragon Sect. Secondly, Qingzhou was located along the eastern coast of the Great Tang. Most of the land was saline and not suitable for growing crops. The people there were many times poorer than those in Guangzhou. Li Zishuan had only been in charge of Lantian County for less than a year, but he had already built the county up. Now, the prosperity of Lantian County's commerce was almost on par with Chang'an. Li Er valued Li Zishuan's ability to make a fortune, which was why he gave Li Zishuan the important task of provincial governor of Qingzhou. After all, the rebellion of the Dragon Sect had given Li Er a great warning. Although the Great Tang was at peace now, in remote places like Qingzhou, there were still many people who did not have enough to eat and had illnesses that were difficult to treat. This gave the Dragon Sect, who wanted to bewitch the people, an opportunity to take advantage of. Li Er deeply understood that in order to truly prevent rebellious sects like the Dragon Sect from appearing in the Great Tang in the future, he only needed to let the poor people live a good life. Think about it. If the people of the Great Tang were as wealthy as the people of Lantian County, who would be willing to risk their lives for the Dragon Sect to rebel? It had to be said that Li Er, as an emperor, had a different mindset from ordinary people. His foresight was even further than ordinary people. Of course, there was no need to doubt that Qingzhou was a barren land. Although Qingzhou was located along the coast, the ancient coastal areas were not the same as the modern coastal areas. In ancient times, it was dominated by agricultural or nomadic societies. The soil environment of the coastal areas was not suitable for growing crops. Even if it could be grown, the grain yield was not as good as the inland areas. Therefore, in ancient times, the grain-producing areas were mostly located in the Central Plains. Secondly, the ancient people's understanding and use of the sea was basically zero. In the Tang Dynasty, people would not use the sea to refine salt, much less use some marine products to make money. Moreover, the waterway trade in this era generally referred to the transportation of water. Wherever large rivers were suitable for trade, especially where two rivers intersected, it was often a strategic location. In comparison, the use of sea transportation was relatively less. Therefore, in the past dynasties, the degree of wealth of the inland cities was far greater than that of the coastal areas. There were even many coastal counties that became the place of exile for the imperial court's prisoners. From this, one could see how poor the coastal areas of China were in ancient times. "Your Majesty, this official is still young and inexperienced. I'm afraid I can't take on this important task. Your Majesty, please take back your order." Not only did Fang Xianling, Li Jing, and the other old officials not want to agree to Li Er's decision, Li Zishuan was also unwilling to agree to it. The main reason was that he was lazy and afraid of trouble. Hearing this, Li Er's eyes narrowed and said in a tone that did not allow for refusal, "You don't have to refuse. I've always been very good at judging people. If I say you can do it, you can definitely do it. The position of governor of Qingzhou belongs to you." Finally, Li Er paused for a moment before finally revealing his true goal. "We hope that you can turn Qingzhou into a fertile land like Lantian County. In the entire Great Tang, Other than you, we really can't think of anyone else who has the ability to do so. Hearing Li Er's words, the officials in the hall came to a realization. Feng Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji, Li Jing, and the other insightful officials could see Li Er's far-reaching intentions. Suddenly, no one raised any objections. Because in the entire imperial court, no one was not convinced by Li Zishuan's ability to create wealth. Li Zishuan felt bitter in his heart. Building Lantian County was already tiring enough for him, and now Old Li had arranged for him to build the entire Qingzhou. He wanted him to govern Qingzhou well. Was he treating him as a money-printing machine? However, Old Li obviously didn't give him any room to object. He had to accept this task, even if he didn't want to. Therefore, after complaining in his heart for a while, Li Zishuan could only cup his hands and say, "This official Li Zishuan accepts the decree." "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace." This acceptance of the decree meant that from now on, he would be a high-ranking official of the border. The Li family could be considered as having some background as a wealthy family. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.